Chapter 1962. Rise, Huang Mengxiang lightly reprimanded. A few drops of sweat seeped out from the tip of her jade-like nose. She poured all of her magic power into the formation flag. With a rumbling sound, it was as if a layer of clothing was peeled off in front of her. A layer of tiny flames the size of a thumb suddenly appeared where her magic power extended. Then, it suddenly disappeared, and a wisp of flame was quickly absorbed into Huang Mengxiang's formation flag. Pa pa pa! Xiao Hua's clapping sound came from beside Huang Mengxiang. Not bad. This formation should be completely repaired. Miss Mengxiang's contribution cannot go unnoticed. Hee, Xiao Hua, just call me Mengxiang. Huang Mengxiang giggled. Suddenly, she blinked and said with a smile. Xiao Hua smiled slightly and ignored her words. He just said, "Now this." Just as Xiao Hua was speaking, a communication talisman flew over and stopped beside Huang Mengxiang. Huh? Huang Mengxiang glanced at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, Xiao Hua, please speak. Maybe it's a communication talisman from my father. Take a look first. Xiao Hua stood with his hands behind his back and no longer spoke. Huang Mengxiang was helpless. She pinched open the communication talisman and heard Huang Meng's voice. Xiang Er, Jing Qifeng, Jiang Yu School Chang, and Qiming Zong each brought their own disciples and a few early-stage foundation establishment cultivators to help. They are challenging in front of Tianmin Mountain's formation. You should come with Senior Xiao. Sigh. Hearing this, Xiao Hua was somewhat speechless. Long before Huang Tianla died, he had already sent out disciples to explain what had happened in the Tianmin Mountain to the deceased cultivators' sects and families. He had also brought corresponding gifts to them. In fact, Tianmin Mountain didn't need to prepare an explanation, but Huang Tianla had to be so careful in order to prevent some sects from using this as an excuse to make things difficult for the Huang family. But in this world, there was no shortage of people who would kick a man when he was down. In the first year, the sects and families were still watching. Later, when they saw Huang Tianla's death, some cultivation families couldn't sit still. In the next 2 years, such things happened several times, but they were all dispersed by Xiao Hua and driven away one by one. Everyone didn't know Xiao Hua's origin, and when Xiao Hua faced the enemy, he also used befuddlement, so he was very mysterious. These families couldn't figure out the details and began to watch again. Now that the cultivation families didn't dare to make a move, these cultivation sects came out. Aunt Huang Mengxiang was a bit. She looked at Xiao Hua with a bitter face. She said, Xiao Hua, Senior Xiao, of course. Of? Cough, cough. Xiao Hua looked at the formation in front of him and said, You go by yourself. This formation doesn't look right. I'll stay here and carefully repair it. I can't fail fellow Taoist Huang's trust. This? Huang Mengxiang was at a loss for words. She understood that Huang Tianla's arrangements before his death didn't include Xiao Hua helping Tianmin Mountain to defend against the enemy. In the previous few times, because Tianmin Mountain's formation hadn't been completed and Huang Liang and Yang Fan hadn't reached the foundation establishment stage, Xiao Hua volunteered to go out when the Huang family was at their wits' end. Huang Mengxiang had seen Xiao Hua's means before, and he was definitely more powerful than Huang Tianla. Now that she saw Xiao Hua refuse, she naturally had nothing to say. All right, then this junior will go and help father and mother. Huang Mengxiang sniffled, as if she was about to cry. The people who came this time didn't come with good intentions. They're all cultivators from cultivation sects, and their means are more powerful than my father's. Senior, please repair the formation here first. When Junior and Mother are killed by them, please help us collect our corpses. It's best to bury my father, mother, and grandfather together. Let Junior be buried near ancestor Huang Yi's old residence, so that Junior can accompany my ancestor after death. Let her see that the Senior Xiao she spared actually didn't help Junior. Okay. Xiao Hua waved his hand angrily, patted his hand, and took out a few formation flags from his storage bag. He said, I'll go now, okay? I knew Xiao Hua was the best. Huang Mengxiang immediately had an expression that turned from tears to laughter. Remember, if you call me that again, I'll leave immediately. I definitely won't make a move. Xiaohua scolded with a straight face. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's face was only 18 or 19 years old. Even though he had been experiencing the pain that Huang Yi had inflicted on him for the past 3 years, these changes couldn't completely change Xiaohua from the inside out. Looking at Xiaohua's face that was even younger than her own, Huang Mengxiang slightly stuck out her tongue and coughed twice. Yes, Junior will follow Senior Zhao's orders. Seeing the secret joy in Huang Mengxiang's eyes, Xiaohua knew that this girl wasn't really obedient. He snorted from his nose and waved his hand, causing a few formation flags to fall in front of her. First, take some medicinal pills and restore your magic power. The great formation of Tianmen Mountain has already been set up. You go and give these formation flags to your father and mother. I have already taught them how to use it. The 3 of you should be able to block those cultivators outside Tianmen Mountain. Yes, Huang Mingxiang replied crisply. She patted her hand, and a few medicinal pills were also sent into her mouth. Soon after, Xiaohua and Huang Mengxiang flew over many pavilions and flew out of Tianmen Mountain. However, the current Tianmen Mountain was somewhat different from the Tianmen Mountain that Xiaohua and Shui came from. The originally beautiful scenery that could be seen at a glance was now covered by an extremely thin mist. This mist covered both sides of Tianmen Mountain, making it look like an immortal mountain. However, it was this light mist that blocked the group of Foundation establishment cultivators above the cold river. This group of cultivators was about 6 or 7 people. Each of them didn't look young, and all of them had a heroic appearance. The one in the lead was wearing a white Taoist robe and even had a horsetail whisk in his hand. His face was like a full moon, and he looked like an expert. Senior brother Yun, junior brother Xie was killed in Tianmen Mountain. A cultivator wearing a navy blue Taoist robe next to this cultivator whispered, although Tianmen Mountain's Huang Tianla later returned junior brother Xie's storage bag and other things to my Jingqi Peak, it is obvious that junior brother Xie's cultivation was at the early stage of Foundation establishment. He was far from being killed by a ghost. What Huang Tianla said is definitely not true. Besides, even if what Huang Tianla said is the truth and a disciple of my Jingqi Peak died in Tianmen Mountain, even if the sect master doesn't say anything, we disciples who have a good relationship with junior brother Xie can't just let it go. We have to get justice for junior brother Xie. That's right. My River Jade sect senior brother Chong is also like this. He died here without knowing why. The sect leader can't say anything. After all, senior brother Chong came out because of something. We can't ignore this matter. Otherwise, senior brother Chong, fellow Taoist Xie, and fellow Taoist Zhu will die in vain. Huang Tianla has a good plan. He only used some spirit stones to send us 3 sects away. Does he really think that we are those cultivation families who haven't seen the world? Another cultivator with a red face who was obviously from the Qiming Zone said fiercely, and I don't know where he found a Foundation establishment cultivator with a bewitching soul to drive away the provocation of the cultivation families. He wants to use such means to scare us disciples of the cultivation sects? Junior brother Hong Qianfei, the message talisman has been sent out for a long time. Why haven't we seen any disciples of Tianmen Mountain come out to greet us? They don't put us in their eyes, but don't they put fellow Taoist Yin Shengshan in their eyes? A thin cultivator couldn't help but complain. Fellow Taoist Yun is a cultivator at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. Yin Shengshan was the cultivator from the Jingqi Peak. At this time, he was a little angry when he heard this. He snorted and said, Tianmen Mountain is a famous cultivation family tens of thousands of years ago. Except for the 3 major sects and the 7 major cities, they don't put any other sects in their eyes. What's the big deal about letting us be left out for a while in Tianmen Mountain? Senior brother Yun, the light fog of Tianmen Mountain is a little strange. The cultivator who instigated just now was Li Ming from the Jiangyu sect. At this time, he frowned and said, I heard that Tianmen Mountain will be covered by a thick fog in the morning or before the rain. It can even affect the travel of the riverboats on the cold river. However, I have never heard of such a large area of light fog. It almost covers the entire Tianmen Mountain. Senior brother Li is right. Ji Shiping from the Qiming Zone also nodded and said, I came to Tianmen Mountain dozens of years ago. At that time, I flew directly into Tianmen Mountain and didn't see any light fog here. Tianmen Mountain has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. This should be their gatekeeping array. Yin Shingshan frowned slightly and said in a low voice, Senior brother Yin, we have seen the gatekeeping array, but Tianmen Mountain shouldn't have one at this time, right? Gao Fu from a Jiangyu sect smiled apologetically and said, their foundation establishment master has died long ago. Tianmen Mountain is full of Qi refinement disciples. How could they repair the broken array? Oh no, Yin Xingshan suddenly realized. Could it be Tianmen Mountain has turned to that major sect? That cultivator in camouflage is also from the three major sects? Of course. Gao Fu was also dumbfounded. I'm afraid it's the Five Elements sect, the Mechanism sect, or even the Qi Qiao sect that can repair all the arrays of Tianmen Mountain, right? It could also be Haoming City. Another person said in a low voice, I heard in private that Haoming City has been interested in Tianmen Mountain for a long time. Before senior brother Zhu came, he came because he heard that no one from Haoming City came. Even if Tianmen Mountain has turned to the major sects, we won't offend anyone by asking about the details of our senior brothers, right? Yin Shangshan suddenly laughed and said, besides, if the person in the camouflage is from the three major sects or the seven major cities, would he need to upload the camouflage? I guess Tianmen Mountain can't wait to take off his clothes and write the details of this person's background on it, so that others can know, right? Yes. Everyone nodded. At this moment, there seemed to be a gust of wind blowing in the faint mist above the foothills of Tianmen Mountain. A dozen cultivators flew out of the mist and bowed at the edge of the mist from afar, but they didn't go up. I'm Huang Liang of Heavenly Gate Mountain. Greetings, fellow Taoists. Huang Liang, who was the first to greet them, bowed and said, what can I do for you? Chapter 1963. Fellow Taoist Huang, you've built your foundation? Ji Shiping of Qiming Zone had obviously seen Huang Mang before and said in surprise. Then he saw Yang Fan and said, fellow Taoist Yang has also built his foundation. Fellow Taoist Huang, you and your wife are really lucky to have two foundation-building cultivators in Tianmen Mountain. I wouldn't dare. My Tianmen Mountain has been in decline for too long. Now that we have two cultivators in the foundation establishment realm, fellow cultivator Ji, it really makes me feel bad. Huang Mang said with a smile, but there was a hint of pride in his tone. Ji Shiping scanned the area again with his divine sense, only to see Huang Mengxiang standing behind Huang Mang and Yang Yu, as well as a group of aura-refining disciples. He didn't see any other unusual people, especially the one they already knew was bewitched. What's wrong? Fellow Taoist Huang, aren't you going to invite us to Tianmen Mountain? Ji Shiping said with a smile. Of course. I'm here to invite you in for a chat. Huang Liang said calmly, cupping his fist and bowing. His calmness made the others hesitate. Even Yun Jishan glanced at Ji Shiping with slight displeasure. He stepped forward and said with a smile, we won't go to Tianmen Mountain to nag fellow Taoist Huang. This is? Huang Mang smiled apologetically. This is senior brother Yun Jishan of Jingqi Peak. Don't you know him? Ji Shiping said with a sneer. So it's senior brother Yin. Forgive me for not recognizing you. If we come to Tianmen Mountain, I'll hold a banquet to apologize and meet all of you in person. Huang Mang said with neither arrogance nor humility. These are. Ji Shiping knew Huang Mang, so he introduced them to him. Huang Mang pretended not to know and greeted them one by one. When he finally raised his head, he was very surprised and asked thoughtfully, fellow Taoist Ji, Jing Qi Peak, Jiangyu sect, and Qiming Zone came together. Is there an urgent matter? Before Ji Shiping could speak, Bai Hua Chu of Qiming Zone sneered and said, you keep calling me fellow Taoist Ji. Do you have any respect for Qiming Zone? Don't you know why we're here? Tell me, how did senior brother Zhu Feng die? What about senior brother Xie and junior brother Chong? Were they going to die in vain at Tianmen Mountain? If you don't tell me the truth, don't even think about returning safely today. He, fellow Taoist Bai, you sure talk big. Huang Liang sneered and said, fellow Taoists from the three sects have come to Heavenly Gate Mountain for this? Our Tianmen Mountain has already explained this matter in detail to your sect leader 2 years ago. The Taoist friend who died in Tianmen Mountain came here to treat my daughter, but it was not Tianmen Mountain's intention to have an accident in Tianmen Mountain. Besides, Tianmen Mountain offered a reward with a magic weapon, which was dangerous in itself. The Taoist friend who died must have been prepared in advance. The responsibility of this matter is not necessarily Tianmen Mountain's responsibility. Furthermore, Tianmen Mountain will return all the storage bags, corpses, and other things of your Taoist friend. I can't think of anything that your esteemed sect is dissatisfied with. Ha ha ha! Of course our sect leader is satisfied. Who can blame Tianmen Mountain? Bai Huachu laughed and said, however, your Tianmen Mountain dismissed us by saying that it was done by an old ghost. The sect leader didn't say anything because he was magnanimous. We are good friends of senior Marshall Brother Zhu. If we don't come out to uphold justice, wouldn't there be no justice in this world? Would people die in vain? What my Huang family said is completely true. Many of Tianmen Mountain's disciples died, and my father and uncle also died because of it. Isn't this enough to explain the problem? That old ghost is from Tianmen Mountain. Who knows where he came from? Tianmen Mountain is dead. How can you drag others into it? Seeing that, Bai Huachu began to pester endlessly. Huang Liang knew that it was useless to continue talking. He sneered and said, what do you mean, fellow Taoists? You don't come to Tianmen Mountain to sit down and talk, but you want to find justice that doesn't exist here. You're really putting me in a difficult position. I don't know what to do to make you understand. Do you still not understand what to do, fellow Taoist Huang? Bai Huachu glanced at Yin Shishan and saw that there was no special expression on his face. He simply took half a step forward and said with a smile, either show us some sincerity from Tianmen Mountain and satisfy us so that we know that what you did was not done by Tianmen Mountain, or let us take you down. At this point, Bai Huachu clapped his hands, and a rope-like magical item was thrown into the air. With the activation of his magic power, it went straight toward Huang Liang. He then shouted, senior brother Yin, if not now, were you going to do it? This. Yin Shishan seemed to be a little hesitant, but at this time, when the others saw that Bai Huachu was the first to shed all pretense of cordiality, they threw away the little scruples in their hearts and clapped their hands. In fact, each of them had prepared a magical item long ago, and they threw it toward Yang Fan, Huang Mengxiang, and the others. Sigh, why can't we talk nicely? Yin Shishan smiled bitterly, but his hands did not slow down much. He rubbed his hands together, and rich water-based spiritual energy quickly gathered around him. Dozens of thumb-thick water swords stabbed toward the people of Tianmen Mountain. This group of sanctimonious people, how dare they call themselves disciples of a cultivation sect? They're worse than itinerant cultivators. Huang Mengxiang cursed. Itinerant cultivators don't even look for a reason to attack directly. They're really despicable. These shameless people even dare to make up a reason. They're too hypocritical. Rise. Without waiting for Huang Liang's order, Huang Mengxiang raised the small flag in his hand and shouted, disciples, listen to my command. Yes. The several disciples behind Huang Mengxiang clapped their hands and took out their own small array flags. Go. Huang Mengxiang activated his magic power, and the small flag in his hand glowed red. On the flag, a small vermilion bird fluttered in the wind. Go. The disciples also began to chant and wave the small flag. As their magic power was rapidly absorbed by the small flag, the disciples opened their mouths and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the small flag. After the small flag absorbed the blood essence and magic power, it gave birth to an even smaller vermilion bird. They flew out with the small flag and flew toward Huang Mengxiang's small flag. Swoosh! Huang Mengxiang saw several vermilion birds flying toward him. He waved the flag even more fiercely, and the small vermilion bird also flew out. With a soft boom, the several vermilion birds merged together. Go! Huang Mengxiang pointed his finger, and a vermilion bird flew into the air. The surrounding spiritual energy was absorbed by the vermilion bird. When the vermilion bird grew several times bigger, it let out a cry and returned to Huang Mengxiang's array flag. Return. Huang Mengxiang's face lit up with joy. He quickly waved the small flag, and several clusters of fire suddenly appeared on the cold river that was originally sandwiched between Tianmen Mountain. Chapter 1964. Huang Liang was infuriated when he saw Bai Huachu unleash his magical item, which was flying toward him like a snake. Just as Huang Mengxiang had said, Bai Huachu's behavior was no different from slapping Heaven Gate Mountain in the face. Wasn't it the same as Shang Qinghe's behavior in Haoming City? While the magical item was flying, it was absorbing the surrounding natural energy. Before it could even get close, Huang Meng felt a faint restrictive force. Not daring to be careless, Huang Meng slapped his hand and took out a small flag from his storage bag. With a wave of his hand, a few wisps of pale white smoke emerged from the small flag. As soon as the smoke appeared, it quickly spread out, and in the blink of an eye, it had enveloped Huang Meng and the others. Bai Huachu's flying magical item twisted a few times, but was unable to land on the ground. However, the magical instruments of Ji Shiping and the others had also arrived. Yin Shishan's magic also fell and smashed into the white smoke. Bang, 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 bang. It sounded like boulders rolling down. Wife, help me quickly. Although Huang Liang could control the formation, his magic power was limited. When everyone attacked the formation, he also suffered from the backlash. Husband, don't worry. Yang Fan had already taken out the array flag. They had practiced this array many times under Xiao Hua's guidance. When he saw that Huang Liang could not hold on any longer, he immediately waved the array flag, and a faint mist flew out from her array flag. However, the areas that were produced were different, and when the mist from these areas connected, they were able to block the attacks of the 6 or 7 people. Oh, this formation is really powerful. Yin Shishan was slightly surprised. But at that moment, a few wisps of flame controlled by Huang Mengxiang appeared above the cold river. This formation can attack and defend. The Huang family of Tianmen Mountain really lives up to its reputation. Ji Shiping was also stunned when he saw the wisps of flame. However, the flame looked very small. Besides, they were above the cold river, where the spiritual energy of the water was abundant. Moreover, Yin Shishan had a water physique and was very good at water magic. Ji Shiping and the others invited Yin Shishan here to deal with the Huang family's fire physique. However, the development of the situation was beyond everyone's expectations. The flame controlled by Huang Mengxiang was like a spark that could start a prairie fire. As soon as it appeared, it immediately ignited the air and the ground under everyone's feet. It quickly spread and enveloped everyone from all directions. How dare you? Yin Shishan was enraged. He didn't think that the 2 Foundation establishment cultivators would only dare to defend, but Huang Mengxiang, a Qi refining junior, would actually dare to attack. Yin Shishan waved his sleeve, and a layer of white mist appeared. Like a ball of water, the mist spread out with him as the center. He did not believe that a little girl who was only at the Qi refining stage, even with the help of a formation, would be able to compete with him who was only at the Foundation establishment stage. However, what happened next easily crushed his disdain. It was like a snowflake being roasted by a flame. The mist of Cloud Shroud Mountain was ignited the moment it came into contact with the flame. Boom! The flame became even more ferocious and directly rolled over. This is Samadhi true fire? Yin Shishan was shocked, but he never thought that even if it was Samadhi true fire, with Huang Mengxiang's cultivation, it would be impossible for her to ignite his spell. Run! Yin Shishan knew how dangerous the situation was and did not dare to delay any longer. He waved his sleeves, and a strong wind appeared. He did not dare to mix in any water element's spiritual energy. Within the strong wind, a wheel-shaped magical artifact spun rapidly and flew towards the place where the flames had not yet closed. Yin Shirshan's body also flew along with the strong wind. He wanted to seize the opportunity to strike first. With a sizzling sound, the water-blue wheel of the magic tool spun vigorously in the fog, as if all the fog was sucked into the magic tool. However, the fog did not seem to be light at all. Pooh! Yin Shirshan's body flew over, and his face changed slightly. He opened his mouth and spat out a light blue bead, which quickly hit the wheel of the magic tool. Kacha! The bead seemed to be extremely cold. When it hit the mist quickly froze, and under the attack of the magic tool, it shattered into pieces. Great! Yin Shirshan scanned the area with his divine sense and found that there was a flaw in the array. He was overjoyed and flew towards the frozen fog. But at this time, there was a boom as the Samadhi True Fire's flames came from behind the layer of ice. How dare you! Yin Shirshan was furious. He slapped his forehead and spat out a mouthful of profound qi onto the light blue bead. There was a buzzing sound, and the bead suddenly expanded and turned white. A natural water essence, smaller than a thumb, flew out from the bead. As soon as it appeared, it immediately turned into a net and rushed towards the oncoming flames. I don't know where you got this Samadhi True Fire from, but you dare to be so arrogant? Who doesn't know that the Huang family of Tianmen Mountain has the bloodline of the vermilion bird? Yin Shirshan was furious. He was actually forced to use his Xiantian water essence by a little girl who was only at the qi refining stage. Even if he managed to escape from the array, he would still lose all his face. Boom! Yin Shirshan's natural water essence was also ignited by the flames. Yin Shirshan's face turned pale as he murmured, How? How is this possible? While he was hesitating, the flame that could burn anything jumped from the water essence to Yin Shirshan's body. Yin Shirshan couldn't do anything and screamed like a mortal. He waved his sleeves left and right as if he wanted to stop the flames. However, a strange thing happened. The flames that were about to ignite Yin Shirshan suddenly froze and floated in front of him. It was as if a powerful cultivator was trying to stop the tragedy from happening. Phew! Yin Shirshan was stunned as he looked at the flame. It was as if it was right in front of his eyes. He let out a long sigh, but in the blink of an eye, the flame jumped up again like a frightened snake. It bared its fangs and pounced on Yin Shirshan's defenseless body. Yin Shirshan let out a heart-wrenching scream. The flame was extremely overbearing. Although Yin Shirshan had a protective magical item and a few layers of light, it was almost extinguished upon contact. Boom! 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 Yin Shirshan only had time to scan the area with his divine sense. Other than Yin Shirshan, the other 6 cultivators were all covered in flames. The flames were pure blue with a tinge of crimson red. Huang Mingxiang is too cruel. This was Yin Shirshan's last thought. Miss Mingxiang? What Yin Shirshan didn't know was that the moment the flame touched him, Huang Mingxiang heard Xiao Hua's voice. These people, you don't have to kill them all. Just teach them a lesson and let them know the power of Tianmen Mountain. They won't dare to come again. Senior Xiao, Huang Mingxiang naturally didn't use telepathy. She wasn't afraid at all. She turned to the source of the voice and said, Senior, you seem to have done a lot of vigilance in the past 2 years, right? But what's the effect? The number of cultivators harassing Tianmen Mountain hasn't decreased at all. Moreover, the behavior of these so-called famous sects is not as good as that of the previous cultivation families. If we don't teach them a lesson, they will probably go back and bring more powerful senior brothers. The cultivation of these people has reached the critical point of our Tianmen Mountain's resistance. If they bring out some martial uncle, how can our Tianmen Mountain deal with it? Senior Xiao, are you going to stay in Tianmen Mountain forever? Even if Senior Xiao stays in Tianmen Mountain, what about their sect masters? What if the sect masters of the 3 sects gather? What will Senior Xiao do? Senior Xiao, You might not know what Tianmin Mountain looks like in the eyes of other sects. Seemingly afraid that Xiao Hua would be angry, Huang Mengxiang immediately explained, "We are now a toothless tiger. They can kill and take as they wish. If it weren't for my ancestors scattering all the things that might cause covetousness, leaving only Tianmin Mountain, I'm afraid we would have been devoured by them long ago. Now that Tianmin Mountain has a formation, what's the point of not teaching them a lesson? Senior Xiao, haven't you seen the Lan family? It's been tens of thousands of years, but they still want to kill the descendants of my Huang family. If we had paid more attention earlier, how could granduncle have been killed?" Looking at the determination in Huang Mengxiang's eyes, Xiao Hua seemed to see the ghost of Huang Yi again. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. "Forget it," Xiao Hua sighed and said softly, "This is your Tianmin Mountains formation. You are the person in charge of the formation. You decide everything." "Thank you, Xiao Hua," Huang Mengxiang said softly. No one else could hear it, but Huang Mengxiang knew that Xiao Hua must have heard it. Just as Huang Mengxiang was speaking, the small flag in her hand danced again. The flame controlled by Xiao Hua jumped up again and rushed toward Yun Shan and the others. Although it was not as powerful as the Vermilion Bird Flame formation in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, which could instantly kill Yun Shan and Shan Qinghe, this small flame was like a bone-chilling pain. It was impossible to get rid of it. It swallowed Yun Shan and the others bit by bit. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the howling stopped. "Disciples, go and take the storage pouches of these cultivators." The flame controlled by Huang Mengxiang was very small. It only destroyed the cultivators' physical bodies, but left the storage pouches intact. Yes, the Huang family disciples were overjoyed. They activated their flying talismans and entered the formation. They took the storage pouches that were supported by the formation. "Father, Mother, stop the formation," Huang Mengxiang said loudly. "Okay." Huang Meng looked at Yang Fan with a helpless expression. The two of them put away the small flag, and the thick fog above Tianmin Mountain gradually dispersed. Behind the thick fog, Xiao Hua's tall and thin figure appeared. "Senior Xiao." Huang Meng and Yang Fan didn't show any disrespect to Xiao Hua because they had already reached the foundation establishment stage. They still called him Senior and bowed. "Thank you, Senior. The formation can be considered complete today." Chapter 1965. Yes, that's true. I didn't expect that these dozens of great formations would be so interconnected. If I don't repair the many formations in Tianmin Mountain, this Tianmin Great Formation won't be able to form, Xiao Hua said indifferently. However, since such a formation can stop a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator, it can also trap a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Tianmin Mountain should be safe. My promise to fellow Taoist Huang can be considered fulfilled. Yes, fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed a man of his word. As Huang Liang spoke, he glanced at Yang Fan. Yang Fan reached out his hand and took out a small storage bag from his chest pocket. Then he stepped forward respectfully and said with a smile, "This is what my father promised Senior a long time ago. My husband said that he would give it to Senior, but I was afraid that Senior would take it. Alas, it's all my fault for measuring the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure. I hope Senior can understand." "Haha, it's fine." Xiao Hua reached out and took it. He didn't look at it and put it in his arms. "I've been comprehending formations for several years and didn't have time to look at this thing. It's just right for me to give it to you. Senior Xiao, I'll hold a banquet in Vermilion Bird Palace tonight to thank Senior for your merit. Please be punctual." Huang Meng smiled apologetically. "Haha, Vermilion Bird Palace has also been repaired? Unfortunately, the Vermilion Bird Flame formation is a fierce formation that can kill nascent soul cultivators. It's not something I can set up with my current cultivation." Xiao Hua chuckled and said indifferently. Huang Meng was slightly disappointed and smiled apologetically. "If Senior Xiao can repair it, my Tianmin Mountain will be safe for 1,000 years. "Father, you're wrong," Huang Mengxiang reminded. "Previously, Vermilion Bird Palace had a formation that couldn't be exposed to the outside world. Now that my Tianmen Mountain's mountain defense formation has been completed, let alone 1,000 years, even 10,000 years won't be a problem. Yes, yes, Junior is a little greedy, Huang Mang said self-deprecatingly. Senior Xiao has worked hard. Junior will invite Senior to the banquet later. Okay, Xiao Hua flicked his sleeves, nodded slightly, and flew away. After Xiao Hua left, Huang Mang frowned and said, Xiang was it Senior Zhao's idea to kill Jing Qi Feng's cultivators? What? Huang Mengxiang raised his eyebrows and said, I made the decision. It has nothing to do with Senior Xiao. Sai, I knew it. How could Senior Xiao be so decisive? Yang Fan also shook his head. Killing the cultivators of the three sects will probably cause a lot of trouble. So what? Huang Mengxiang sneered. If one comes, I'll kill one. If two come, I'll kill a pair. Let's see who dares to come. You may leave. Huang Liang sighed. Perhaps father is too conservative. Our Tianmen Mountain has been wronged for too long. Humph. As long as Senior Xiao is here, I may not be afraid, even if the Haoming City comes. Huang Mengxiang didn't admit that she was wrong and sneered. All right. I didn't say you were wrong. Yang Fan said with a smile. It's rare for Tianmen Mountain to be so proud and elated. Why do you have to be so conflicted? Let's invite Senior Xiao for a drink. He has done too much for our Tianmen Mountain. If it weren't for, as she said that, she turned to look at Huang Mengxiang, seemingly thinking about something. Senior Xiao doesn't like spirit wine that is too spicy. I've just found a very bland one. I don't know if it will suit his taste. Huang Liang apparently did not notice Yang Fan's gaze, nor did he notice Huang Mengxiang's slight uneasiness. However, when night fell and Huang Mengxiang came to the quiet room again to invite Xiao Hua to the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, he was stunned. There was only a jade bottle and a jade slip on the futon that Xiao Hua often sat on. Xiao Hua was nowhere to be seen. Xiao Hua. Huang Mengxiang's heart suddenly felt like it was being torn apart. It was as if something that he felt he had suddenly disappeared. His heart was so empty that it was frightening. Huang Mengxiang grabbed the jade bottle and saw that there was only a pill without any fragrance in it. It looked inconspicuous. Huang Mengxiang didn't have divine thoughts, so he couldn't see the jade slip. He waved his hand, and the jade slip flew into his hand. Then, he suddenly turned around and ran out of the quiet room. Father, mother. Huang Mengxiang's tone was almost crying. Senior Xiao is gone. What do you mean Senior Xiao is gone? What's going on? Hearing Huang Mengxiang's voice and seeing that he didn't use a flying talisman or a messaging talisman, Huang Liang was shocked. Has Senior Xiao left? There is no trace of Senior Xiao in the quiet room. This is the jade slip and pill left on the futon that he usually sits on. Huang Mengxiang handed the jade slip over. Hurry up and see what Senior Xiao said. When Huang Liang took the jade slip, Yang Fan also asked with a pale face, Xiang didn't you go to the quiet room next door to take a look? If Shui is still there, Senior Xiao will definitely not be far away. Yes, I forgot. Huang Mengxiang suddenly realized. Let me go and have a look. Then she turned her head and said, Hurry up and have a look. No need. Huang Liang waved her hand and said, Senior Xiao has already left Tianmen Mountain. Ah, when did Senior Xiao leave? I'll go after him. Huang Mengxiang was almost crying when she heard that. She was no longer the decisive female cultivator just now. Seeing Huang Mengxiang take out the flying talisman, Huang Liang sighed, grabbed her arm, and said, Senior Xiao has already left after coming back from the formation. You don't know where he has gone. Where are we going to find him? The Imperial Thunder Sect. I'll go to the Imperial Thunder Sect to find him. Huang Mengxiang said anxiously. He must be angry that I didn't listen to him and didn't let those cultivators go. Huang Liang had never seen Huang Mengxiang so anxious, so how could she not know what she was thinking? She sighed and said, Xiamer, don't go. Senior Xiao doesn't blame you. He said clearly in the jade slip that this is your choice, and he won't blame you for it. He just has something else to do. He has been in Tianmen Mountain for too long, and he can't wait any longer. Really? Senior Xiao didn't say where he was going. Huang Mengxiang asked again with a relieved look on her face. Haha, of course not. If he had said, how could I not tell you? Huang Liang said lovingly. Okay. Huang Mengxiang stretched out her hand and said, Father, give the jade slip to me. When I have a divine sense, I'll check it myself. Haha, no problem. Huang Liang handed the jade slip to Huang Mengxiang with a smile. Huang Mengxiang took it and hid it as if it was a treasure. Husband, the Suzaku ring seems to still be with Senior Xiao, right? And what's with this jade bottle? Seeing Huang Mengxiang's behavior, Yang Fan looked at the jade bottle in Huang Liang's hand and reminded her. Chapter 1966. Mother, why would Senior Xiao care about the family heirloom of Tianmin Mountain? Huang Mengxiang clapped her hands and took out the vermilion bird ring. She said regretfully, Senior Xiao gave this to me 10 days ago. I was only immersed in repairing the array and didn't think much of it. Now that I think about it, Senior Xiao had already thought of leaving. Good, that's good. Yang Fan looked at the Suzaku bracelet and whispered. Then, he looked at Huang Liang, who was faintly excited, and said, Alas, Senior Xiao, it's really... Come, let's talk in the quiet room. Seeing Huang Liang so excited, how could Yang Fan and Huang Mengxiang not know the rarity of the pills in the jade bottle? However, Huang Mengxiang was even more confused. All the elixirs that he had seen before had a medicinal smell that assailed his nostrils. How could this ordinary-looking elixir be anything good? Hundreds of miles away from Tianmin Mountain, a pair of beauties were flying leisurely. The woman with skin as white as jade and eyebrows as beautiful as a painting laughed and said, Xiaolang, you gave the Tianmin Mountain the parasol pill that can break the curse. They will burn incense every day for your kindness. TSK, who knows if that thing can break the curse of the Huang family? Senior Huang, you didn't know. So how can I know? But since it's possible, why not give them one? The woman was naturally Shui, and the one who answered was Xiaohua. Anyway, I have as many of these things as I want. That's strange. Shui shook her head again. Since you have so many, why not give them more? Only one? This doesn't seem to be your style. If you give too many things, others won't cherish them. Moreover, this parasol pill has a special meaning to me. If it wasn't useful to the Huang family, I wouldn't have given it to them. Xiaohua explained. Moreover, Huang Mengxiang's curse has lost its effect. If this parasol pill is effective, his and Yang Fan's children won't be affected by the curse, and the curse of the Huang family's direct bloodline will be broken. It's already good enough that I can help up to this point. There's no need for me to do more. Even if it's a favor, it should be limited. Too much will ruin things. Exactly. I thought you wanted to help me until the end. I was still waiting for Huang Mengxiang to reach the foundation establishment before you leave. Shui said faintly. I even thought you wouldn't leave. How could I? I still want to accompany you to see the sea. How can we not leave? Don't tell me that this young lady isn't infatuated with you. Shui said with a smile. Others may not know, but this concubine can see it clearly. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Shui was in the quiet room next to him. Whenever Huang Mengxiang came to the quiet room to listen to Xiaohua's lecture on the Tao of array formations, Xiaohua would open the restriction of the quiet room. Shui's divine sense could sweep in at will. Huang Mengxiang didn't know about this and would often say some ambiguous words. Xiaohua didn't explain and simply ignored him. He only treated it as a child's depression. Your husband is upright and upright. I'm not afraid of these things. Xiaohua smiled and held Shui's hand. Your husband feels that little cabbage is really pitiful. It's better to make some. Xiaohua originally wanted to say that he had obtained a lot from transcending Huang and couldn't not repay Tianmin Mountain. However, when he thought about how this kind of memory had been erased by him, he changed his words. Alas, no wonder little cabbage is so infatuated. Just look at Huang Mengxiang. He knows that you have a dual cultivation partner, but he's still so entangled. Shui also said unhappily. Could it be that everyone in the Huang family is like this? Oh, what about little cabbage? Can you still keep it well? I keep it well. I keep it well. Do you want to see it? Xiao Hua smiled apologetically. No need. It's fine as long as she's living well. Xue Xue bit her lips and said, It's better than the real little cabbage. Alas, I should have put little cabbage in Senior Huang Yi's old residence, but you just had to take it. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Oomph. Even if it was put back in the Han River, near Tianmen Mountain, it's hard to guarantee that those unscrupulous and ignorant fishermen would take it away and make it into other people's food. Rather than that, it's better to keep it with us. Xue Xue snorted coldly and said, I don't know what kind of powerful people this immortal alliance is. They actually made up such a vicious story and used the hands of others to destroy Senior Huang Yi's soul. It's really hateful. Xiao Hua put his index finger to his mouth and whispered, Just by hearing this name, I know it's not easy to get along with. It has nothing to do with us, so it's fine if we don't talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, then don't talk about it. As long as it doesn't stop you from accompanying me, why should I care about it? Xue Xue giggled and said. A trace of gloominess flashed through Xiao Hua's eyes. It seemed that he had a little impression of this immortal alliance, but if he thought about it carefully, there was no clue at all. In addition, fellow Daoist Chong from Mo Cloud Village came to Tianmen Mountain several times and seemed to want to see you, but you always refused. It's fine if you don't want to see him, but you still want me to go out. It's really embarrassing for me. Xue Xue complained again. It's not like you don't know Mo Cloud Village's plan. I don't mind helping them, but I can't be trapped, right? Xiao Hua said in a bad mood. Moreover, fellow Daoist Chong brought a lot of gifts, which made me feel a little distant and didn't let Chong Li Hao and the others feel close. Besides, Chang Xuemei seems to have some disputes with Ling Feiyu. Isn't it just right for you to go? Forget it. It's Feiyun's business. I'm too lazy to care about it. Xue Xue looked into the distance and whispered, Should we take a detour now, or fly directly to Haoming City? Xiao Hua thought for a moment. Let's take a detour. If Huang Mengxiang and the others come, we might encounter them. I don't want to see them. Oh, are you angry? Xue Xue looked at Xiao Hua thoughtfully. Just because of what you said just now? Huang Mengxiang killed 6 or 7 Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. That's not it. Xiao Hua shook his head. Miss Mengxiang's methods are indeed ruthless, different from mine. But thinking about it, her choice at that time was not wrong. If we didn't kill them, they would inevitably attract more fellow Taoists to come and cause trouble. Instead of that, it's better to kill them at that time and take advantage of them first. I think so too. Xue Xue nodded. Uncle also encountered a lot of such things in the Misty Mountain. Not to mention others. Pu Jianyuan of the Flying Phoenix Ridge is a very typical example. That's what it means to eliminate all evil. And I always feel that the heavenly Tao is merciful and should always give people a way to live. Xiao Hua also looked into the distance and nodded slightly. That's because my husband's methods are powerful. I don't care if they find more people. Xue Xue said, and the more people they bring, wouldn't my husband's harvest be more? Ha ha, Xiao Hua touched his nose and laughed. Maybe, my husband. Seeing Xiao Hua's action, Xue Xue smiled. In these 3 years, although my husband's cultivation seems to have not improved, I can feel that it's not stagnant. Moreover, my husband is becoming more and more profound, and I can no longer see through him. It really makes me feel uneasy. But today, hearing my husband's words, it seems it's still the same Xiao Hua. Huh, is it? Xiao Hua said in a daze. Why didn't I feel it? Good preparation, amazing the world with a single brilliant feat. Isn't it all prepared for my husband? Xue Xue pursed her lips and smiled. Xiao Hua blinked his eyes, looking very pitiful. Wife, you think so highly of your husband. I'm afraid I'll disappoint you. Ha ha. Xue Xue couldn't help but laugh while holding her stomach. When she finished laughing, Xiao Hua took her arm and asked, Let's not talk about my husband first. I also have a question to ask you. Huh? What? Xue Xue's bright eyes turned and smiled. If it's about the jade slip, I won't answer. Of course it's not about that. Xiao Hua shook his head and said, I want to ask you something. In these 3 years, you've been cultivating hard. Although I didn't say anything, from my observation, your magic power has also been improving. It seems to be different from a usual peak of qi refining, where magic power is stagnant. Of course, this is your privacy. I'm just concerned about it. It doesn't matter if you don't say it. He, Shue cast a glance at him and said, I thought you could always hold back, but I didn't expect you to still ask. Do you think I'm like Senior Huang and Senior Yang, having such a good opportunity to build my foundation all of a sudden? If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Just pretend I didn't ask. Xiaohua knew that Shue had other secrets and quickly changed the topic. Alas, forget it. In fact, even if you didn't say it, I would have told you. Shue sighed and said, my decision to go to the Misty Mountain for this foundation establishment experiential learning was correct. Uncle didn't expect that I would be able to build my foundation so quickly, so he didn't tell me in advance. I was afraid that it would delay my cultivation. Presumably, Xiaolang already knows that I have the true bloodline of the Thunder Beast, right? And, naturally. If not, why would the Thunder Beast protect you? Xiaohua nodded and said, but it's precisely because of the Thunder Beast bloodline that the success and failure of the bloodline. Not only is the Thunder Beast bloodline difficult to awaken, but it also has extremely high requirements for building one's foundation. Shue smiled bitterly and said, Uncle said a lot, so I won't explain it to you one by one. When it comes to building my foundation, Uncle told me to go with the flow and not be in a hurry to build my foundation. If I rush, not only will I fail to build my foundation, my life will also be in danger. Why is that? Xiaohua was shocked and secretly rejoiced that he didn't act rashly. It's actually quite simple. Shue smiled and said, because the bloodline contains the true bloodline of the Thunder Beast, this characteristic also appears in the meridians. After reaching the peak of the qi refining realm, the hidden thunder physique will compress true qi. This way, although one's magic power will increase, the time it takes to condense true qi will be delayed. Moreover, because it's compressed true qi, it will be more difficult to condense it. However, if the true qi isn't compressed enough, it won't be easy to control when condensing it. When building your foundation, it's very easy to reverse the true qi into true qi. Chapter 1967. I understand. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, once you reach foundation establishment, your magic power will definitely surpass those of the same level, even more powerful than Qi Refinement Great Circle. It really is the true blood of lightning beasts. It's exactly as Xiao said. Shue's brows were filled with indescribable joy. Only then can I be worthy of husband. Xiaohua nodded and smiled. Since it's like this, you should have told husband earlier. You've been so quiet and full of worries. It really makes husband worried. It's easy to say. Shue said again. It's precisely because there are so many benefits that foundation establishment is even more difficult. There are very few disciples in my Shue family who can reach foundation establishment. Although I'm already at the peak of qi refinement, when it comes to foundation establishment, I have no confidence at all. Is there no other way? Xiaohua asked softly. If there's anything husband can do, don't hesitate to tell me. You can accompany me in cultivation. I don't want anything. Shue said very happily. Xiaohua said curiously. So there's still some ways? Right? Do you use the things from the lightning beasts? Eldest senior brother gave us the corpses of the two lightning beasts. Seeing Xiaohua asking like this, Shue pondered for a moment, then clapped her hands and took out a jade slip, handing it to Xiaohua. This is what Uncle gave me last time. I only took a simple look at it. Refining this thunder pill is really too difficult. Not to mention that we don't know alchemy. Even if we did, the materials are extremely difficult to find. Just foundation establishment is already so tiring. I have a headache just thinking about it. Thunder pill? Xiaohua took the jade slip and immersed his divine sense in it. But after looking for a moment, his expression changed slightly. What was recorded in the jade slip was exactly the pill that Shue's ancestors used to promote Foundation establishment. However, this pill was different from others. It was specifically targeted at the Shui family with the lightning beast bloodline. Wife is right. Xiao Hua sighed and returned the jade slip to Shui and said with a bitter smile, not to mention that this pill refining technique is somewhat skillful, and not to mention that the soaring thunder pill requires the different blood of a male and female lightning beast. This husband has never even heard of that heavenly grass. This spirit pill of yours doesn't just seem to be used for Foundation establishment. I'm afraid it's used to stimulate the lightning beast's true blood, right? Hee, my husband is indeed brilliant. Shui took the jade scroll and said with a smile, that's right. It's not easy to awaken the bloodline of the Thunder Beast. If you can conjure a Dharmakaya, it'll be easy for you to build your foundation. That's right. Such a precious item is so difficult to refine. If there wasn't a generous reward, the pill formula of this high thunder pill would have been useless long ago. Xiao Hua curled his lips. However, as he curled his lips, his heart moved, as if he had thought of something. Just as he was about to think about it again, he heard Shui say with a smile, when I was in Misty Mountain, I already knew that it would be difficult for me to build my foundation. Uncle sent me to the Imperial Thunder Sect to see if he could borrow the secret technique of the Imperial Thunder Sect to improve the possibility of building my foundation. However, he didn't expect that the Imperial Thunder Sect wouldn't have the power to reverse the situation. It's not that there's no power to reverse the situation. It's just that you didn't know at that time that Elda Senior Brothers Tao Foundation was supplemented by the Thunder Pill secret technique. You'll also have a way. Look, although you didn't intend to look for the lightning beast, didn't the true blood of the male and female lightning beast already arrive in front of you? Once you know what heavenly grass is and find a senior who can refine pills, won't your problem be solved? How could it be so simple? Shui snorted disdainfully. To extract the lightning beast's true blood requires a secret technique, and refining pills also requires a secret technique. Without the strength of a gold core, don't even think about it. In my situation, I can only ask my master, but she also doesn't know how to refine pills. Don't panic. If 3 years isn't enough, then 5 years. If 5 years isn't enough, then 10 years. Xiao Hua held Shui's hand and said, your husband will always be waiting for you. After you build your foundation, I will dual cultivate with you. Husband. Shui's face was slightly red. She leaned against Xiao Hua's side and leaned on his arm, looking indescribably charming. But at this moment, a very inappropriate voice sweetly sounded, Good morals are really degenerating with each passing day. A great beauty with a virgin body is calling a pretty boy husband in broad daylight. Which family's disciple is this? This has really opened my eyes. This is simply more demonic than my heavenly demon sect. Who? Shui's face was even redder. She raised her head and saw that several dozen feet away, 3 early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators wearing strange clothes were walking over on clouds. The one who spoke was the person in front. This person was half a head shorter than an ordinary person. He was obviously a male cultivator, and his Adam's apple was very high. However, his face was as white as jade, and his facial features were picturesque, especially his pair of elegant eyebrows. They were both thin and long, very beautiful. Unfortunately, the pair of eyes under his elegant eyebrows flashed with a somewhat lascivious light. In addition, he was wearing a brocade of flowers, making him look like a bride of the secular world. Looking at the 2 people behind him, one had a ferocious appearance, and the other looked simple and honest. However, they were both tall and strong, and incomparably majestic. Not only was their hair shaved clean, their clothes from head to toe looked like Taoist robes, but also like the sloppy clothes of a street beggar. Their arms, thighs, and tanned chests and thick chest hair were exposed. Among them, the simple and honest-looking man was holding a petite female cultivator in his right arm. That female cultivator's beautiful hair was already scattered, and her clothes were also disheveled. Her head hung low, only revealing a snow-white nape. Seeing that they were three strange early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators, Shue's heart was greatly relieved. She sneered and said, "I'm talking to my husband. What does it have to do with you? Although I haven't dual cultivated with my husband, I have already given my heart to my husband. What's so funny about this?" Haha, as expected of a pure little girl. The voice of the male cultivator in front was even more pleasant to listen to than Shue's. "Little girl, you don't know the joy of dual cultivation, so why are you talking about dual cultivation here? Look at your husband, he's just a pretty boy. How can he compare to this servant? Look at this servant's two husbands. Both of them are comparable to you, the husband of this servant's. How about this? If you come with this servant will teach you the ability of dual cultivation. I'll let you have a taste of dual cultivation." Scram! Xiaohua saw that this guy's words were becoming more and more filthy and couldn't help but become angry. "If you say half a word more, this young master will chop off your neither male nor female dog head." Hee hee. The male cultivator pursed his lips and laughed. Unexpectedly, there was a hint of flirtatious feeling in his voice. "I didn't expect little Longyuan's temper to be so irritable. I just don't know how good your skills are. This servant hasn't finished speaking yet. Little Langjun, you should also follow this servant. This servant is definitely more interesting than a young and inexperienced little girl like you." Damn it, what kind of people are they? Xiaohua couldn't help but feel disgusted. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. Suppressing his disgust, he asked, You're from the Heavenly Demon Sect?" Naturally. Since you know we're from the Heavenly Demon Sect, why don't you immediately join us? Our Heavenly Demon Sect accepts disciples. Someone like little Langjun who has face, integrity, and cultivation will definitely be welcomed by the sect master. When Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but think of the incomparably handsome and devilish Zhang Qingxiao he saw in Lingpei Mountain Villa. Damn it, I didn't expect this guy to have such a hobby. That day, I was still grateful that he seemed to have the intention to let go. Now that I think about it, this guy, I'm afraid he has other plans. Thinking of this, Xiaohua felt a burst of disgust, and goosebumps almost appeared on his body. Chapter 1968. You're neither a man nor a woman. Xiaohua resisted his disgust and pointed his finger. I don't want to lower myself to your level, and I don't want to get entangled with you. If you know what's good for you, quickly leave now. I'll pretend I didn't see you. That male cultivator still didn't get angry. He even stretched out his hand, made an orchid gesture, and pointed at Xiaohua. You're such an enemy. How did you know I like this kind of person who looks cultured and refined, but has a violent temper and actions? You're really a gift from the heavens. Soon after, he said to Shui with a smile, Little girl, don't be jealous. I'll return your little husband to you. Moreover, eat. He laughed again and said, I can also serve you together with your little husband. Shameless, Shui couldn't bear it anymore. Her face flushed red. She clapped her hands, and the magic tool, Thunder Whip, appeared in her hands. Without hesitation, she circulated her magic power and swung it. The Thunder Whip produced traces of lightning, and it streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning, lashing towards the male cultivator. Oh my, you actually didn't listen to my words. You're really a virgin. The male cultivator covered his mouth. His movements were very charming. He swiped his orchid fingers and took out a pink-colored magic tool from his storage pouch. He shook his hand and threw it. From the magic tool, a sky full of flying flowers flew out. They all turned pink, and like peach blossoms, they blocked the attack in midair. Puff, puff, puff. The Thunder Whip broke the numerous peach blossoms, turning them into bits of pink powder that floated in the air. The Thunder Whip was also blocked by the remaining peach blossoms, unable to descend. Seeing the pink powder drifting away with the wind and gradually disappearing, Xiaohua's expression suddenly changed. He angrily cursed. Damn it! His figure flew to Shui's side. He waved his hand, and a gust of wind came out of his sleeve. In an instant, the powder in the air, which was almost invisible, flew towards the male cultivator. Huh? The male cultivator was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect Xiao Hua to be able to discover his trick. Moreover, when he saw Xiao Hua's profound cultivation base, his eyes lit up with joy. He smiled tenderly and said, Ayaya, I didn't expect that little Lang Jun, who looks like you've just built your foundation, would have such a profound cultivation base. This really makes me secretly happy. You can stay. I'll let you have a taste of my yin and yang dual cultivation. With that, the demon cultivator waved his hand. The other two burly male cultivators also clapped their hands and took out banner-shaped magic tools from their storage pouches. Each of them stood in a direction, surrounding Xiao Hua and Xue Xue. The female cultivator in their hands was also rudely thrown into the air. However, the female cultivator was still facing down, so they couldn't see her true appearance. Xiao Hua hugged Xue Xue. His gaze roamed over the three figures and transmitted his voice. The demon's magic tool is a bit strange. There seems to be poison inside. Don't let these filthy things touch your body. Xue Xue's face was a bit red. Just now, she was angry and made a move. Indeed, she didn't think too much. After hearing Xiao Hua's words, she was a bit scared. She immediately clapped her hands again. The butterfly orchid flew out and fluttered around her body, protecting her with butterflies. Huh, good magic tool. The demon cultivator saw such a beautiful appearance of the butterfly orchid, and his eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and said, This magic tool is really beautiful. Little Lang Jun, if you give this magic tool to me, I'll also let you feel comfortable. Your grandmother. Xiao Hua was so angry that he laughed. If you have the ability, then come and take it yourself. I'll let you die right now. With that, he clapped his hands and took out the Yang Leaf fan. Good, it's a fire attribute physique, really wonderful. The demon cultivator clapped his hands again. I didn't expect to meet such a wonderful person along the way. Little Lang Jun is really a gift from the heavens. Of course, if it wasn't for you, how could I walk this path? Xiao Hua slightly urged his magic power, and the Yang Leaf fan was suffused with a red brilliance. Hee, then let me and my two Lang Juns have a taste of little Lang Jun. As the demon cultivator spoke, he threw two coquettish glances at the two strong men. When the two strong men received the coquettish glances, it was as if they had eaten 10 great tonics. No matter if it was their essence, energy, or spirit, they were overflowing. The two men waved their hands at the same time, and magic power flowed out. The two magic tools banners were suffused with a pink color, and within the pink color, countless images of women appeared. Following the two strong men's light rebuke, the magic tools in their hands were waved, and the countless women actually flew out of the pink banners, fluttering around Xiao Hua and Xue Xue. There's this kind of magic tool? Xiao Hua was a bit dumbfounded. Seeing that Xiao Hua was holding the Yang Li fan in his hand, and only the light was overflowing, but he didn't wave it, Xue Xue couldn't help but become anxious. She waved her hand again, and the lightning whip flickered with lightning as it struck towards the woman. Pa pa pa. A burst of light sounds rang out, and the woman seemed to be hit by the lightning whip like a bubble. However, immediately after, one after another, vivid and lifelike women were born. Xue Xue's whip didn't seem to have any effect. Immediately after, from the direction of the sound, the pink undergarments once again flew in. With a shake, peach blossoms entered the woman's body, and with every peach blossom that touched her body, the woman transformed into an incomparably strong and robust man. Well, was there even a need to say it? As for what would happen next, Xiao Hua didn't even need to use his heels to know what was going to happen. How could he allow such a filthy thing to dirty Xue Xue's eyes? Bang! A flame dragon that had been condensed and hadn't been unleashed finally rose up from Xiao Hua's Yang Li fan. It was like a real dragon, and it roared, rolled, and coiled as it pounced towards those women formed from the banners. Although that demon was incomparably lascivious, he was also a person with discerning eyes. As soon as he saw Xiao Hua's Yang Li fan move, that imposing manner, that masculine fire, he immediately knew that his and the other two cultivators' magic treasures were all restrained by it. All the hidden tricks inside were about to fail. However, looking at Shue's pure white skin and the radiance in Xiao Hua's eyes, he was somewhat reluctant. He clenched his teeth, clapped his hands, and took out a similarly bright red medicinal pill. He swallowed it, and in an instant his face flushed red. "Rise!" The demon's eyes were wide open, and his hands were like forks as they shot straight towards the sky. From his palms, a circle of magic power was released, but seeing Xiao Hua's fire dragon fan, it was definitely several times more tyrannical than when it was used against Pu Jianyuan at Misty Mountain. The two people surrounding Xiao Hua only saw a flash of fire in front of their eyes and felt the blazing heat in the field. Their eyes slightly closed, and their divine sense swept out. At this instant, the illusions formed by the magic banners and the insidious medicine under the illusions were all swept away by the fire. But at this moment, the demon's attack arrived again. The bright red undergarment was suddenly torn apart, and bursts of blood flowed out from the undergarment. That blood was incomparably fishy, and faintly, there was a baby-like evil spirit that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Swoosh! The fire dragon that was incomparably powerful just a moment ago was immediately extinguished when it came in contact with the blood. Moreover, the blood covered Xiao Hua and the others. Before it could sprinkle down, a strange dizzying smell rushed into Xiao Hua and Shue's nostrils. This is menstrual water and a purple placenta that hasn't given birth yet. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and his complexion greatly changed, immediately becoming gloomy. From Huang Yi's inheritance, he understood a lot of ghost cultivator techniques, and he understood a lot of extremely sinister tricks. Although he didn't know what this thing that the demon took out was, he was very clear about the things that were used to refine it. There was no need to talk about the menstrual water, but that purple placenta was something used to give birth to babies. If it was a simple purple placenta, how could it possibly have a sinister effect? How could there be a baby-like evil spirit? Needless to say, the demon must have taken out an unborn baby from a pregnant woman's body, and then used it to refine it. Only then could he have a method that even Xiao Hua, who was at Foundation Establishment, would find difficult to handle. Xiao Hua knew how powerful this was, and he naturally also knew that magic artifacts like the Yang Leaf Fan and even magic treasures like the Cloud Suppressing Seal couldn't be touched by this filth. Otherwise, the array within would definitely be corroded, and it would be completely useless. This young master originally didn't intend to take your lives. Since you're so sinister, the Heavenly Demon Sect isn't any good either. Xiao Hua sneered. This young master will transcend all of you. As Xiao Hua spoke, he put away the Yang Leaf Fan, and with a wave of his hand, he took out the banner that he previously obtained from the Heavenly Demon Sect. Profound Een banner? Why do you have a profound Een banner? When the demon saw Xiao Hua's banner, he was also stunned, but what happened next made him feel even more inconceivable. He saw Xiao Hua toss the profound Een banner into the air, and his left hand slightly stretched out, as if he was grabbing something from the void. Soon after, he waved his hand again, and the profound Een banner suddenly opened up in the air, emitting a pitch-black brilliance. What? You're also a member of my devil sect? The demon was shocked and anxiously asked, why would Xiao Hua pay attention to him? Activating the profound Een banner, the banner swayed, and the ink-black brilliance not only blocked the blood spilled by the demon, but also produced a boundless suction force from the banner, sucking the fanged ghosts and the blood into the profound Een banner. You, which senior of my heavenly demon sect are you? The demon hurriedly activated his sinister magic artifact, wanting to take back the ghosts, but the suction force from the profound Een banner was not something he could resist, so he could only cry out and ask, "Go to hell." When Xiao Hua saw that the profound Een banner had sucked away the ghosts and the blood, he rubbed his hands together, and streaks of purple true samadhi fire appeared in his hands. Following Xiao Hua's wall of fire technique, they immediately surged toward the three people from the heavenly demon sect. True samadhi fire. The demon was anxious, and he did not care about his other two companions. His feet moved slightly, and his entire body was about to fly away. You want to leave now? How is that possible? Xiao Hua sneered, and with a wave of his big sleeve, the great confinement technique was cast at the three people at the same time. Immediately, a force that made them feel as if they were invincible was born, and it sucked away the heaven and earth spiritual energy around them. It was as if a large hand was squeezing them, and they were unable to move at all. Chapter 1969. Senior, please spare my life. Senior, please spare my life. This junior didn't know that Senior was a cultivator of my heavenly demon sect. This junior has offended you. This junior deserves to die. At this moment, not only the demon, but the other two cultivators were also anxious. They shouted and struggled with all their might. Xiaohua was not moved at all. Like a tidal wave, the wall of fire rushed into the air and ignited the three sinister magic tools. Then something fell down and covered the three cultivators. At the same time, three miserable screams were heard. The true samadhi fire turned the three cultivators' bodies into ashes in an instant. Although this power could not be compared to the Vermilion Bird Great Formation of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, it was still extremely easy to kill a Foundation Establishment cultivator. Darling Xiao, seeing the power of the true samadhi fire, Shue couldn't help but be stunned. Although you've been repairing Tianmen Mountain's formation these past 3 years, your cultivation seems to have not stopped. Especially this true samadhi fire. It's even more powerful than when you dealt with Senior Huang Yi that day. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the three people's storage pouches flew into his hand. He casually looked at them and put them away. He said with a smile, Tianmen Mountain has the bloodline of the Vermilion Bird. They're also proficient in fire spells. Most of those formations are also related to fire. Even if your husband did not specifically cultivate, how could the control of the true samadhi fire be lacking after being immersed in the formation for 3 years? What is this profound Yin banner? Shue looked at the pitch-black profound Yin banner in the air with some confusion. Sigh, I obtained this banner by chance when I was training with senior sister Sun Shu and the others. I don't usually use it. Later, I saw how powerful the ghosts were, and your husband had no way to deal with them. Only then did I remember this demonic item and casually refined it. Today, I use it to collect the ghosts. It's quite convenient. As Xiao Hua spoke, he pointed his finger and the profound Yin banner rolled up and flew into his hand. Yes, since he used ghosts to refine a magic treasure, it must be something that harms people. This kind of demon should be eliminated as soon as possible. Shue did not ask Xiao Hua how to deal with the ghosts and said hatefully, As for this female cultivator, I don't know where she came from. I'm afraid she was forcefully captured by the demon. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept and looked at the female cultivator who was facing down. I'll go take a look. Shue. Let your husband do it. Xiao Hua flung his sleeve, and that female cultivator was flipped over by a big hand. Shue smiled and said, Xiaolang, what do you want me to say? Your magic has really risen with the tide, making it difficult for this lowly concubine to look up to you. You'll know once your magic power is refined. Xiao Hua smiled. He knew that his magic power was profound, but his magical techniques were shallow. Although he didn't have the time to truly organize the bags of holding of the gold core cultivators, he still had jade slips that he could use to gain enlightenment. Although it seemed easy to casually flip over the female cultivator's body, it was much more difficult to do so, as if he were actually moving a hand. Shue and Xiao Hua were chatting. When the female cultivator turned around and saw the female cultivator's face, Shue was somewhat surprised. What do you think? Previously, it was already said that those who could cultivate and enter the Tao all had outstanding aptitudes. They were the gathering of heavenly spirits, especially female cultivators. Which one of them wasn't abnormally beautiful? But this female cultivator in front of her was clearly an exception. Not only was her figure bloated, her face was like a pancake with a sunken nose, a bloody mouth, and a few large pockmarks on her face that shone with oil. This is a female cultivator? Shue Shue was somewhat surprised. If it wasn't for this female cultivator's good skin and her bulging chest, she would almost think that she was a male cultivator. Yes, she's definitely a female cultivator. Xiao Hua concluded based on his male intuition. I just don't know how a demon from the heavenly demonic sect would take a fancy to this kind of beauty. Are you a demon? Shue Shue asked in all seriousness. Xiao Hua was stunned. Of course I'm not. Why? Then how do you know her hobbies? Speaking up to here, Shue Shue's face reddened again, and she glared at Xiao Hua. You clearly could have used Yi Yang Fan to break the illusion from the beginning. So why didn't you do it? Could it be? As she spoke, she looked at the female cultivator's chest. I'm innocent. Xiao Hua raised his hand and said, I just want to see what other tricks they have, and see if they're worth killing. You want to kill even the demons from the heavenly demonic sect. Don't blame me for not reminding you in the future. Shue Shue put her hands on her hips and said angrily, but then she felt that she was too arrogant, so she put her hands down again. Seeing Shue Shue's arrogance that hadn't been seen for a long time, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up, and he nodded repeatedly. I know. Yes, then wake this female cultivator up and ask about the situation. Shue Shue immediately withdrew her arrogance and said somewhat charmingly, Okay. Xiao Hua looked at the female cultivator, and his divine sense swept over her. He then took out the demon storage pouch, took out a few jade slips, and looked at them for a long time before taking out a jade box. He shook his head and said, Dawn Rain Continent is really full of knowledge. If this storage pouch is gone, it'll be a bit difficult to wake this female cultivator up. Inside the jade box was a light green ointment that emitted a pungent fragrance of cosmetics. Xiao Hua raised his hand, and a piece of ointment flew up and landed under the female cultivator's nose. Achoo, achoo. The female cultivator sneezed dozens of times in a row, then immediately woke up. However, before she could open her eyes, she cursed angrily. Damn you, Fan Qian, you actually dared to plot against your mother? Don't tell me you forgot. When you were a loose cultivator, it was your mother who gave it to you. As she spoke, she waved her hand, and dozens of fireballs flew out from her hand, enveloping Xiao Hua and Shue Shue. Good gracious, it's actually a female cultivator who just entered Foundation building. Xiao Hua didn't expect that he would casually save a Foundation building cultivator. Moreover, her temper was so fiery, attacking and injuring people without even opening her eyes and sweeping her divine sense. Unfortunately, this female cultivator's angry attack was still not enough for Xiao Hua to see. Xiao Hua swung his sleeve, and a surge of magic power caught all the fireballs like a large hand and threw them far away. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A burst of chaotic sounds. Only at this moment did that bloated female cultivator open her eyes. Her divine sense swept over, and she said in shock, Sleeve Cosmos technique? You're a disciple of Bloodray Island? Fan Qian? Where's that guy Fan Qian? Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua frowned slightly, feeling somewhat displeased in his heart. This technique was something he learned from a jade slip, and he was called out just as he used it. I'm not a disciple of Bloodray Island, and there's no one called Fan Qian here. May I know where you're from? You were actually captured by 3 heavenly demonic sect cultivators? Heavenly demonic sect, the female cultivator sneered. That androgynous fellow is called Fan Qian. Previously, he was just a loose cultivator. Damn you, I haven't seen him for more than 10 years, and he actually entered Foundation building. When he met me, he actually used a secret technique to knock me out. Damn you, he entered Heavenly Demonic Sect? What kind of sect is Heavenly Demonic Sect? How come I don't know about it? Chapter 1970. I am Xiao Hua, and this is my junior sister. Today, we came out to gain experience and just so happened to run into those three people. This Xiao saw that the young lady was unconscious and was held by someone at the waist. It seemed like she had been poisoned, so I stopped them and questioned them. Xiao Hua coughed. Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Who would have thought that the three of them would attack me without saying anything? With the help of my junior sister, I was lucky enough to kill them." Saying this, Xiao Hua pointed at the place where the fire burned and took out the demon storage pouch. "Ah, is that so? So you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. You're really well known." The female cultivator heard this and slightly relaxed her vigilance. She cupped her hands and said, "I'm a disciple of the ardent fire mountain called Huafurong. Thank you for saving my life, fellow Taoists. If I hadn't met you, I would have been a virgin." Saying this, a shy expression appeared on her face, and she bowed. "Hee, Senior Hua, you don't have to be like this. It was just a coincidence. Moreover, the Ardent Fire Mountain is also a famous cultivation sect in the Dawn Rain continent. It's not inferior to my Imperial Thunder sect." Shue Shue quickly helped her up and said, "Ardent Fire Mountain?" Xiao Hua revealed a thoughtful expression. He naturally remembered that when he was at the second layer of the Qi refinement realm, he was mistaken for a disciple of the Ardent Fire Mountain when he was refining and selling fireball talismans in Jinghua City. Now, many years had passed, and he actually met a real disciple of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Moreover, they even helped him. This was really karma. Perhaps it's because this Hua Furong has a pure fire constitution that she was chosen by the demon of the Heavenly Demon Sect. Xiao Hua thought to himself, no need to call me senior." Hua Furong pulled Shue Shue's hand and said with a smile, "Just call me sister. I've never put on the airs of a foundation establishment senior. Moreover, little sister Shue is my savior, so I can't call you senior." Little sister Shue's name has Shue, and sister's surname is Hua. It's really fate. Although Hua Furong's appearance was unsightly, when she spoke, her personality was very straightforward. It was so much so that she seemed to not have any shrewdness. In just a few sentences, she told Xiao Hua all the things that he wanted to know. As it turned out, Hua Hibiscus had followed the Grand Master of the Ardent Fire Mountain to Haoming City to participate in an auction. However, because there was still a long time before the start of the auction, she sneaked out to relieve her boredom. It was in Shouting Town not far from here that she met the androgynous Fan Qian as soon as she stepped out of the teleportation array. Fan Qian was also very happy to see Fire Furong. He shouted that he wanted to repay Fire Furong's kindness in the past and lured her into the trap set up by the three of them to capture her. "Little sister Shue, Xiao Hua, there's nothing good in this servant's storage pouch. It's still on this servant's waist. That demon won't take it." Hua Furong smiled. "I wonder where the two of you are going to train? If you have time, follow me to Haoming City and let my old ancestor thank you properly." Although Shue Shuen knew that they were going to Haoming City this time, she still looked at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and nodded. "We're also going to Haoming City. We're going together." "Ah, very good." Hua Furong clapped her hands and said, "I heard that the scale of this auction in Haoming City is very large, and only golden core cultivators can participate. Follow me, and I'll let you see the world." "Okay." Xiao Hua smiled. "However, I still have something to do, so I can't go with you for the time being." Is that so?" Hua Furong was a little disappointed. "However, I'll send you to the teleportation array in Shouting Town and entrust my junior sister to you. How about you take her to Haoming City first?" Xiao Hua suddenly said. "Senior brother Xiao?" Shue Shue was stunned and asked curiously, "Where are you going?" I naturally have something to do. It's a little inconvenient to take you with me. Since fellow Taoist Hua is here, she can also escort you to Haoming City." "No problem. Just watch me." Hua Furong patted her chest, and her breast surged. "Senior brother." Shue Shue was a little resentful, but when she thought about her cultivation, she could only be a burden to Xiao Hua. She said sadly, "You be careful. Go early and come back early." "Don't worry." Xiao Hua blinked at her. "When have I ever suffered a loss? Moreover, I'll give you a surprise when I return." Shue Shue didn't look happy at all and only nodded slightly. This lowly concubine doesn't want any surprises. I only hope you come back safely. And I will. Don't worry. Xiao Hua nodded. Seeing Shue Shue and Xiao Hua talking like this, how could Hua Furong not know their relationship? She looked at them enviously. Xiao Hua sent Shue Shue and Hua Furong to Shouting Town and watched them enter the teleportation array. Only then did he reluctantly part with Shue Shue. Xiao Hua knew that the reason why Hua Furong was captured by Fan Qian was partly because she was careless, and partly because the teleportation array was too far. Even if she resisted, there wouldn't be any cultivators helping her. After this lesson, she would definitely be vigilant. From Shouting Town to Haoming City, she would definitely use the teleportation array. Even if there were some places where she had to fly, as long as Hua Furong showed the sign of being the direct disciple of the 3 old monsters of Blazing Fire Mountain, who wouldn't help her? Besides, only people like Fan Qian with ulterior motives would covet Hua Furong. Other people probably wouldn't be interested, right? Therefore, it should be appropriate for Shue Shue to follow Hua Furong. Afterwards, Xiao Hua didn't leave in a hurry. Instead, he hid in a hidden place and released his Buddhist awareness. He observed the teleportation array of Shouting Town for a long time until he felt that there were no conspicuous cultivators or cultivators related to the heavenly demon sect. Only then did he feel relieved and leave. After all, this was related to Shue Shue's safety, so no amount of caution was excessive. Xiao Hua came out of his hiding place and didn't look around. He just randomly chose a direction and flew away. After flying for half a day, he stopped and scanned the area with his divine sense. He found another cave and cleaned it a bit. Then he waved his hand and took out 100 or so shiny jade talismans. He placed them in various parts of the cave in an orderly manner. Then he made a grabbing motion in the air, and several dozen flashes of light appeared as the rabbit formation was set up. During the 3 years in Tianmen Mountain, Xiao Hua mainly focused on repairing the array. While he was comprehending the array of Tianmen Mountain, he also refined a lot of rabbit spirit talismans. It had to be said that the Huang family was indeed a prominent family from tens of thousands of years ago. Although it had declined, its foundation was still there. The materials used to refine the spirit talismans were all given to him by Huang Mengxiang without hesitation. Of course, as Xiao Hua's assistant, Huang Mengxiang had to stay by Xiao Hua's side almost every day. In addition to the usual cultivation and comprehending the rare and painful traces left behind by Huang, Xiao Hua didn't have much time to organize his gains. Even the heaven and earth in the sleeve that he used before was something that Xiao Hua occasionally obtained when he was busy. Of course, Xiao Hua's current spiritual power was comparable to the gold core realm. Although he had just practiced the heaven and earth in the sleeve, it was still more than enough to deal with Fan Qian and the others who were in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. However, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged and didn't hurry to organize. Instead, he shook his body and released the Phoenix Dharma body. In these 3 years, he didn't cultivate at all and didn't make any progress. It was still about 200 feet tall. It flapped its wings and floated above Xiao Hua's head. Alas, I don't know if it's right to change the Great Strength Guardian Dharma body to the Phoenix Dharma body. Xiao Hua's divine thought swept over and sighed. The Great Strength Guardian Dharma body can still be tempered with a cultivation method, but I don't know how to cultivate the Phoenix Dharma body. Although I previously swallowed the Fire Ape Soul Essence and Chao Wu Soul Essence, and went through the tempering of the Fire Essence Flame Crystal, Earth Crystal Yao Milk, and the Origin of Fire, I didn't see any special progress. I can't just rely on swallowing soul essences, right? Moreover, I was beaten to the point where I couldn't even fight back when I met some Five Sons evil ghost. It's really sad. It's so difficult. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and kept the Dharma body back in his body. However, he smiled again. Damn it, I have such good fortune. How can I blame the heavens and others? I don't have any true spirit bloodline. I was really lucky to be able to produce this Dharma body. Moreover, if I didn't have this Phoenix Dharma body, could I save Fairy Hong Xia? Could I dual cultivate with her? Thinking of Fairy Hong Xia, a smile appeared on Xiao Hua's face. It was a happy smile, a smile of reminiscence. Then, Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and spat out the execution dream from his mouth. As soon as the execution dream appeared, it immediately turned into 32 sword lights and flew in all directions of the cave. Seeing the cold sword lights in the sword array and the tight defense, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "This sword array is now a great weapon of mine. It's a pity that this is still sword light. It's fundamentally different from a real flying sword. It shouldn't be a problem to kill cultivators below the golden core stage. However, if it really encounters a golden core stage cultivator, it's not bad if it can trap them. Sigh, sword spirit, oh sword spirit. Does a flying sword without a sword spirit really have no spiritual energy? Can it be used at will, and its power can be multiplied? The other 8 sword balls have been nurtured for such a long time, but there are still no signs of flying swords. I really want to see if the 10,000 swords of the world can be compared to the sword array of a sword cultivator." Xiao Hua was not in a hurry to keep the sword array. Instead, he spent another 2 hours practicing the sword array until he was familiar with it. Only then did he keep it. After practicing the sword formation, Xiao Hua once again circulated the exquisite leaf sutra and revealed the 2-foot-long Buddha Saraira. Immediately, the entire cave was filled with Buddhist light. The Buddhist light was golden and dazzling, extremely gentle. Coupled with the Buddha Saraira's abnormally benevolent expression, it really showed the divine ability of Buddhism. This Buddha Saraira is also strange. Previously, it was 1 foot tall, but now it's 2 feet tall. Coupled with the second-grade golden lotus under its feet, it should be 2 feet tall. Xiao Hua looked at the Saraira, similarly benevolent expression in his eyes. However, this Saraira is completely different from before. The previous Saraira was an empty shell, just like the Phoenix Dharma body. Now, because of Senior Huang Yi's lightning tribulation, not only did it fill the second-grade golden lotus under the Saraira's feet, it also filled the Saraira quite a bit. Of course, it's probably because my cultivation technique is not complete. There are still many places in the Saraira that are blurry. Sigh. To be merciful and deliver all living beings from torment, Senior Huang. These words are easy to say, but who knows how difficult it is to put them into practice. Although this little one has promised you, you still have to let this little one do it slowly. Only when one's cultivation base and divine abilities are profound will one have greater power and greater mercy. Chapter 1971. Putting away the Buddha Saraira, Xiao Hua opened his mouth again, and 2 balls of flames flew out. One was a scarlet-red spiritual flame, and the other was a 5-colored spiritual flame. At this time, the spiritual flame was already the size of a fist. As soon as it appeared, it immediately gave off heat, while the scarlet spiritual flame was the opposite. It quietly floated in the air without any heat. The fire can already refine tools now. Wait until I collect all the materials to repair the cloud-suppressing seal. The cloud-suppressing seal is an earth-type magic treasure, so it should be something I can use when I'm in the foundation establishment stage. Xiao Hua frowned and thought. However, this spiritual fire isn't as powerful as I thought. Senior Huang Yi's 7-eyed amorous passion fire can actually resist it. Of course, Senior Huang had the body of an evil spirit. Her 7-eyed alluring flame had the characteristics of both the netherworld and the vermilion bird primordial flame. It was used to resist the heavenly tribulation. Compared to such a wondrous item, young Master Huang's spirit fire was not bad at all. It's a pity that the ancient fire control method is also incomplete. Now I can only cultivate the spiritual fire without any progress. I don't know what level it can reach in the end. Putting away the spirit fire and frigid Zhu fire, Xiao Hua checked his Buddha's heart again. Above the Buddha's fire was the sword pill and the shabby small dough. Xiao Hua had long turned a blind eye to the small dough, so when he took it out to take a look, he still couldn't see any abnormalities. Immediately after, Xiao Hua checked his basic cultivation base, and his divine sense fell on his meridians. Is this dragonization ability useful or not? This young master had used the blood shadow technique to cultivate his meridians on their own. He had been cultivating it almost all the time without stopping at all. If it were any other divine ability, after cultivating it for so long, there would at least be some signs of improvement. But this brat, even though the lightning tribulation had come, he had been torn apart and restored, and then continued tearing apart. This young master had already tasted countless sufferings, but he had not changed at all. Isn't this a blow to my confidence? However, although he thought this, Xiao Hua still faintly felt that the dragonization art was very powerful. It was impossible for him not to cultivate it. He didn't need to worry about it. He could cultivate as long as he wanted. After checking his cultivation, Xiao Hua somewhat sighed. Master said I was greedy, and sure enough, it's like that. If I take out any of these things, Master will scold me. Alas, fortunately, I'm already in the foundation building realm, so I can still cope for several decades. Immediately, Xiao Hua began to sort out the storage bags. There were a lot of spirit stones, pills, spirit grasses, materials, and other things inside the storage bags. Xiao Hua didn't know much about them, so he put the things he knew together into categories, and the things he didn't know were simply separated. He didn't put everything together like before. This simple tidying up took Xiao Hua nearly half a day's time. Looking at the dream mirage butterfly egg that hadn't changed in the past 3 years, Xiao Hua was still the same as before. Before he could find a way to restrain the dream mirage butterfly's incomparably powerful innate talent, he didn't dare to have the slightest idea of moving it. In the end, Xiao Hua's gaze fell on a pile of magic tools and magic treasures. Looking left and right, Xiao Hua couldn't find anything suitable. Forget it, I'll put them all away first. Isn't there going to be an auction? If it doesn't work, then I'll exchange it for other things like spirit stones. Hey, eldest senior brother is really generous, giving these spirit stones to me. That's right. According to the records in Huang Yi's imprint, a great divine ability is a great magical technique. Where do I have a great magical technique? Right now. How can I teach it to little Xiang Jili? Damn it, that's an exaggeration. However, fortunately, great divine abilities are only possessed by nascent soul stage cultivators. Perhaps I'll be able to find one in the future. Xiao Hua finally understood what a great divine ability was. Alas, in the end, what was left was a pile of jade slips. There were too many things recorded in them, including cultivation methods, secret techniques, secret stories, and so on. Xiao Hua used nearly 3 days to roughly look through them. From them, he picked out 2 Earth Attribute magical techniques and prepared to practice them. One was called Earth Congealing Technique, similar to the Great Confinement Technique. However, it used Earth Attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth to confine and pressure the enemy from all sides. It was even more powerful than the Great Confinement Technique. The other one was Earth Shield Technique, a defensive technique. It could form an Earth Attribute shield around Xiao Hua. The sturdiness of the shield was related to Xiao Hua's magic power. After recording the chants of the 2 magical techniques on a separate jade slip, Xiao Hua thought of the talisman technique. However, Huang Yi's talisman technique was performed using the soul body. If Xiao Hua wanted to use it, he must first practice the 9th heavens of spirit origin cultivation method to the great perfection stage and cultivate the power of the soul. After taking out the simple soul cultivation method, Xiao Hua thought of the Confucian cultivator's tortoise shell and core. After pondering for a long time, Xiao Hua still didn't take out the tortoise shell. Instead, he first recorded the memories of the Confucian cultivator's scarlet imprint on a jade slip. After finishing this, Xiao Hua thought of God Guidance, Lightning Evasion, Jade Talisman Technique, and the Soul Thorn in the Scarlet Imprint. Alas, there are too many magical techniques to practice. There's not enough time. Xiao Hua immediately wailed. If I could use the Blood Shadow technique to practice, that would be great. Yes, Xiao Hua now had magical techniques and many magical techniques. Compared to the time when he was a loose cultivator, It was like the difference between heaven and earth. But now, there was another problem. He didn't have enough time. Unfortunately, these magical techniques couldn't be cultivated by the spiritual dragon vein like the dragon transformation art. He could only practice them bit by bit. For the first time, Xiaohua longed to go into seclusion. A long seclusion where he could practice all the magical techniques. I'll accompany Shui to see the sea. First, I'll help her build her foundation. After returning to the Imperial Thunder Sect, I'll casually find a place in the myriad Thunder Valley to open an immortal's cave. I'll immediately go into seclusion. Damn it, this young master did not know which expert he had offended to actually seal this young master's Naiwan palace. No matter how I think about it these 3 years, I can't remember anything. Presumably, my memory loss is related to this guy. Is it necessary? I used to be a mortal who didn't know how to cultivate qi. Even if my Naiwan palace was sealed, what effect would it have on me? What good would it do that guy? Xiaohua secretly clenched his teeth. He put the matter of dual cultivation with Shui after building his foundation to the back of his mind. If I don't hurry up and raise my cultivation level, won't I still be at his mercy? Even when Senior Huang was at his peak, he couldn't open it. Then what kind of cultivation level is that? That's right, when I met the Empress that year, she seemed to have checked it too. Why didn't she say anything? Xiaohua thought again. I'm afraid it's because the Empress cultivation level isn't high enough to open this seal. She didn't want to offend him, or maybe she didn't want to alarm that person again and put me in danger. At this time, Xiaohua took out the token that the Empress had given him. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it. Chapter 1972. At this time, Xiaohua took out the token the Empress gave him and looked it over. At that time, the Empress said that if I built my foundation, I could help her with something. Now that I've built my foundation, I should repay her kindness. However, I have to bring Shui along and help her build her foundation, so it's not too convenient. Let's wait until after this experience. Also, the space at the back of my head is different from a storage bag. It actually isolates the information from the tokens, communication talismans, tokens, and other items. Even if I meet the queen in the vicinity, the tokens and other items will not have any reaction. It is better for me to place these useful items in a separate storage bag. If I am really able to meet her, it will be fate. Soon after, Xiaohua organized all the things he needed, put them in the storage pouch, and tied it to his waist. Only then did he decide to practice the 2 spells first. Then, he would study the characters of Confucian cultivators. The other spells could only be put aside for later. After finishing his arrangements, Xiaohua calmed his mind, closed his eyes, and immersed his divine sense into the jade slip. He silently read the earth condensation techniques, formula word by word. 10 days later, Xiaohua's figure flew out of the cave. He scanned the surroundings with his divine sense, raised his head to identify the direction, and used the bright thunder escape to fly towards a certain place. He flew for another 10 days. When his divine sense saw a flourishing place, he unconsciously frowned and stopped. Then, with a wave of his hand, he took out a jade slip. He immersed his divine sense into it and carefully looked at it. He looked around and muttered to himself, according to the message left by Xie Zhiqian from the Immortal Ascension sect, it should be here. However, this place is obviously a paradise on earth. How could there be such a rare, spiritual herb like the heavenly een grass? Could it be that someone planted the heavenly een grass here? However, since the heavenly een grass is a miraculous alchemy item that can work together with thunder attribute materials, how could it be planted here? Since this place is still in the country of Shi, my Imperial Thunder Sect is famous for thunder attribute spells. It's impossible that we don't know about this place, right? Xie Zhiqian also couldn't have used this thing to invite Martial Uncle Jinyi, right? Maybe Xie Zhiqian and the others have already left? Xiaohua was somewhat regretful. When he saw Xie Zhiqian in Flame Forest Marsh, he promised to bring the jade slip to Jinyi. However, Jinyi had already died, so the jade slip naturally couldn't be delivered to Jinyi. Xiao Hua had only inadvertently seen the contents when he used a secret technique to break the blood-colored seal. However, since it was something planned by a Jinan cultivator, Xiao Hua absolutely didn't participate in it out of curiosity. Wasn't the miserable situation at that time an absolutely good lesson? However, just as Xue helplessly handed over the jade slip containing the Ling Lei pill to Xiao Hua suddenly thought of this matter. Since the heavenly Yin grass was useful for Xue's foundation establishment, Xiao Hua had no choice but to brace himself and come over to take a look to see if there were any opportunities. Of course, Xiao Hua's heart was also perturbed at this moment. Cooperating with a golden core cultivator, he was definitely at a disadvantage. Last time, he had Zhun Yi, a golden core cultivator, as his backing, so he dared to bargain with others. But this time, he was alone, so he was definitely asking a tiger for its skin. However, that jade slip was given to Xiao Hua by Xie Zhiqian 4 years ago. Who knew if this matter had already passed? Let's go over and take a look first. If a senior has the opportunity to obtain the heavenly Yin grass, I also have to see what price I can pay to exchange for it, right? Xiao Hua didn't want to let go of this rare clue, so he released his divine sense and carefully and slowly flew forward. After flying for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, there was still a field of flowers and plants in front of him. A light breeze blew past, and bursts of floral fragrance brushed against his face, making Xiao Hua feel slightly tipsy. This place. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept past a few swaying flower branches, and he suddenly discovered some fluctuations of spiritual power. This seems to be a formation. Xiao Hua had immersed himself in the Tao of formations these past few years, and his cultivation in the field of formations had greatly increased. If it was before, he definitely wouldn't have been able to discover it, but now he could easily detect it. Moreover, in the blink of an eye, he had come up with several possible ways to break it. This is strange. Why would there be a formation here? Xiao Hua's divine sense locked onto the location of the formation, and he pondered. Xie Zhiqian didn't say much. He only told me to come here to find him. With his unfamiliar friendship with martial uncle Zhenyi, he wouldn't easily divulge the location of where he was going. This is probably the place where they gathered in advance. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua seemed to have a card up his sleeve. He stood in midair and respectfully waited, and he didn't hurry to use his divine sense to search around. Sure enough, after the time it took to eat a meal, a hurricane seemed to blow up where Xiao Hua stood, stirring up the flowers and plants in the vicinity of 100 feet. However, those flowers and plants didn't fly into the air, but instead strangely sucked into the ground. Waves of tearing force appeared all over Xiao Hua's body, as if they wanted to tear his body into pieces. However, Xiao Hua turned a deaf ear to them and didn't pay any attention to them. He knew that as long as he left this position, these forces would immediately become real. If he stood still and didn't move, these forces would become illusions. Just as Xiao Hua expected, although all kinds of forces appeared, as soon as they came into contact with his Taoist robe, they all turned into nothingness like a breeze blowing through the flowers and plants. Immediately after, from the place where the hurricane was sucked in, 2 rays of brilliance appeared like blooming spring flowers. 2 female cultivators dressed in beautiful clothes appeared on the left and right. These 2 female cultivators were both in their 40s, and their appearances were quite beautiful. Each of them held a flower branch in their hands, but the flowers on the branches were different. Hey, which sect are you a disciple of? Why are you so rash as to wander in front of my burial flower manor? The female cultivator beside Xiao Hua, dressed in blue clothes and holding a plum blossom in her hand, scolded without any trace of politeness. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over them, and he knew that they were both in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. He didn't dare to be negligent, and he immediately cupped his hands and said, "I am a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, and my name is Xiao Hua." Huh? A disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect? What are you doing here? The female cultivator on the right was dressed in blue clothes and held a begonia flower branch in her hand. She looked at the female cultivator on the left and asked curiously. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said with an apologetic smile, "Let me tell you, fellow Taoists, I came here to find Senior Xie from the Immortal Ascension sect." Immortal Ascension sect? The female cultivator on the left was very eloquent, and she immediately asked, "If you are looking for the Immortal Ascension sect, you will naturally go to Meng country. Why did fellow Taoist Xiao come to my burial flower manor?" This. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment, then slapped his hand and took out the jade slip from his storage pouch. He explained, "I have Senior Xie's jade slip." He said, "I can find him here, so I came." The female cultivator shook her head and replied, "There's only burial flower manor here, and there is no Xie. Fellow Dawa Xiao, please go back." So it's like that. Xiao Hua's face showed disappointment, and he sighed, cupped his hands, and said, "Many thanks, fellow Taoist. I have disturbed you." With that, Xiao Hua turned around and was about to leave, but the eyes of the female cultivator on the right lit up, and her face showed respect, as if she had heard an order, and she said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, please wait a moment. When did you get this jade slip?" Xiao Hua was happy and quickly said, "I saw Senior Xie 4 years ago in Flame Forest Swamp." The female cultivator nodded and said, "Okay, let me see the jade slip." Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the jade slip flew to the female cultivator. The female cultivator took it, and she used her divine sense to check it. After looking for a moment, she said strangely, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, this jade slip should be for Senior Zhenyi, right? Why are you here?" Xiao Hua's face showed a sad expression, and he said, "Alas, Martial Uncle Zhenyi died in Flame Forest Swamp, so I can't give this jade slip to Martial Uncle. Okay, since it is like this, I will thank fellow Taoist Xiao on behalf of Senior Xie. This jade slip, I will give it to Senior." The female cultivator waved her hand and put the jade slip into her storage bag. She said with a smile, "The disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect are indeed extraordinary. You specially came to report this matter, which surprised me." Seeing that the female cultivator took the jade slip without saying anything and said some words of admiration, Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said awkwardly, "Since fellow Taoist can give this jade slip to Senior Xie, then Senior Xie must be in Burial Flower Manor, right? Can I personally give it to Senior Xie?" "You little brat," the female cultivator on the left sneered. "I already told you that Senior Xie isn't here. Even if Big Sister is willing to give you the jade slip, it won't happen today. If you want to personally give it to Senior Xie, then you should take the jade slip to Meng Country's Immortal Ascension Gate." The female cultivator on the right was obviously more gentle. She stared at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, "Does fellow Taoist Xiao have something to say to Senior Xie?" "Yes." Xiao Hua let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "I came here today for the thing in the jade slip." "Oh." The female cultivator on the right raised her eyebrows and looked Xiao Hua up and down again. She said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you've just entered the Foundation establishment realm, so you should consolidate your realm. There are many useless good things, so you shouldn't covet them too much." "Alas, I'll let fellow Taoists know." Xiao Hua smiled apologetically. "That thing is useful for Thunder Attribute disciples, but I have no use for it. I came here to ask for this thing for my dual cultivation partner to help her reach the Foundation establishment realm." The female cultivator on the left laughed and said while covering her mouth, "What an affectionate person. Presumably, you two were already familiar with each other when you were in the Aura Refinement realm, right? Now that you've reached the Foundation establishment realm, you still want to look for an opportunity to reach the Foundation establishment realm for her and plan for a beautiful future? Fellow Taoist, you're wise." Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. "My master wants to find a female Foundation establishment realm disciple to dual cultivate with, but I'm still thinking about my former junior sister. I can't forget the oath of eternal love, right? That's why I came here." "Good. Not bad." The female cultivator on the right didn't say anything, but the female cultivator on the left gave him a thumbs up. Once other people reached the Foundation establishment realm, They either consolidate their realm or set their sights on female foundation establishment realm disciples. They're all thinking about their own future. There really aren't many people like you who don't forget your old love. If senior sister doesn't help you, I won't. However, before she finished speaking, the female cultivator on the right immediately berated her. Junior sister. Chapter 1973. That's right. She didn't even ask what Xiaohua wanted and just said she would help him. This female cultivator on the left was really straightforward. Senior sister. The female cultivator on the left smiled and said, little sister just wants to, at this moment, a voice as clear as an oriole and as gentle as jade sounded. You two don't quarrel. Hi, Dang. Let him come in and talk. Yes, Manor Lord. The two people's faces became serious, and they bowed and said in unison. Soon after, the female cultivator on the right, who was holding a begonia branch, waved the begonia branch. The many begonia flowers on the branch emitted a bright brilliance. Each begonia flower seemed to bloom. They separated from the branch and hovered in front of the female cultivator for a moment. As the female cultivator made a hand seal, they turned into several strange diagrams. Finally, as the female cultivator made a hand seal, they flew to her feet. Rumble, like a hot spring, waves of flowers gushed out from the place where the begonia flowers flew to. These waves of flowers directly divided into 3 groups and flew to the feet of Xiao Hua and the 2 female cultivators respectively. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please follow me inside. The female cultivator named Haidang stepped on the waves of flowers. At this moment, Xiao Hua saw that Haidang was barefoot. On her white and delicate bare feet, her 10 toes were painted pink. Please, Xiao Hua retracted his gaze, slightly cupped his hands, and also stepped onto the wave of flowers. Then, the wave of flowers suddenly enveloped upwards, and thousands of spinning flowers surrounded Xiao Hua, hugging Xiao Hua as they fell towards the flowers and plants. And in the middle of the rotating waves of flowers, a strange brilliance flashed very faintly, and a flower that didn't exist suddenly appeared. Xiao Hua, Haidang, and the others didn't notice it at all. In just a moment, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. The surrounding gorgeous flowers all disappeared, and a rather spectacular manor appeared in front of him. The manor was built on a plain and surrounded by hills that weren't high. As far as his eyes could see, it was dozens of miles in size. There were many pavilions and galleries inside, and there were also many rockery and lakes. However, Xiao Hua's divine sense couldn't leave his body. It was probably restricted by a large formation. Xiao Hua slightly raised his head again, only to see floating clouds in the azure sky above his head. Occasionally, a few birds would fly through the air, and the chirping sounds could be clearly heard. This formation is not inferior to the Sky Gate Mountain's water-cutting formation. Xiao Hua thought to himself in awe as he slowly descended. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please. Haidang and another female cultivator landed beside Xiao Hua and pointed at the several zhang tall gate of the villa not far away. Please, Xiao Hua returned the courtesy and followed Haidang to the villa. The gate of this villa was different from what Xiao Hua usually saw. It was a semicircle about 10 zhang in size, like a semicircle formed by twisting some kind of strange vine. On top of the semicircle, there were all kinds of colorful flowers. Some were round, some were star-shaped, some were flat, and there were even strings of sparks. The 2 sides of the manor's gate were even more bizarre. Large trees were lined up side by side, like guards protecting the manor behind them. Although the gaps between these trees were large enough, Xiao Hua knew that there was definitely an extremely powerful restriction in the middle. Buried Flower Manor. When Xiao Hua walked closer, on the gate of the villa surrounded by vines, for big words composed of flowers of different colors suddenly flashed. It was very conspicuous. Buried Flower Manor. Xiao Hua's eyes turned slightly. Whether it was the ancient records of the Imperial Thunder Sect or Huang Yi's imprint, there was no trace of this place. Moreover, he didn't mention the name of the place on the jade slip. He really didn't expect that there would be such a strange villa not far from Haoming City. The female cultivator, named Haidang, is already a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Their villa master should at least be a cultivator in the early stage of gold core, and even a cultivator in the late stage of gold core wouldn't be surprising. This kind of cultivation, this kind of power, I'm afraid it's second only to the 7 major cities. It's more powerful than any cultivation family. I'm afraid that the Lingpei villa I encountered before isn't even worthy of carrying their shoes. While Xiao Hua was pondering, he had already followed the two into the villa. What he saw inside the villa was somewhat different from what he saw when he descended from the sky. After walking along the gallery formed by petals and vines for half a cup of tea's time, they arrived in front of an azure lake. In the middle of the lake, there was a faint white mist in the air. In the white mist, there was a small bridge that led directly to the lake. When they arrived at the small bridge by the lake, Haidang stopped and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, I can't accompany you. Please go to Linlang Pavilion alone." "Many thanks, fellow Taoists." After Xiao Hua cupped his hands and bowed to the two, he slowly stepped onto the small bridge. Soon after, he was in no hurry and slowly walked along the small bridge into the white mist. This small foundation establishment cultivator is somewhat interesting. The female cultivator on the left looked at Xiao Hua's appearance and said somewhat strangely. Haidang tilted her head and seemed to be thinking about something. She asked, "Plum Blossom, do you think this cultivator called Xiao Hua is too calm?" Probably. It can't be called calm. To be able to cultivate to the early stage of foundation establishment, his temperament must be calm. Although he doesn't look old, he must have used a youth-preserving spirit pill. He can't be too young. Plum Blossom said with a smile, "Elder sister, don't you think the way he walked to Linlang Pavilion is too strange?" In my impression, apart from Taoist master Yinhong, who walked step by step, all the other cultivators, including some qi refining cultivators, as long as they find that there is no restriction on the small bridge, they will use magic, fly, or shrink to show off in front of Villa Lord. This perhaps. Haidang didn't agree with Plum Blossom's idea too much. She said, non-committally, perhaps he feels that there is a restriction on the small bridge, or he's afraid that using magic will trigger the restriction. Forget it. In the end, this is a small cultivator who is affectionate and righteous. If Villa Lord can help him, that would be the best. We will wait here. While they were talking, a flower basket flew out from the white mist and quickly flew in front of Haidang. Haidang extended her hand and took out the jade slip Xiao Hua gave her. She placed it in the flower basket, and the flower basket quickly flew back. Xiao Hua stepped on the small bridge and looked around while walking. Under his feet was the azure lake. Countless fish swam back and forth while swinging their tails. There were also some aquatic plants around the fish. When the breeze blew, faint ripples appeared on the surface of the lake. The aquatic plants also slowly swayed along with the ripples. The small bridge under his feet was also made of rot-tanned bamboo-like plants. It was somewhat slippery and even had some moss. It looked like it had been there for a long time. "It is really strange," Xiao Hua criticized inwardly. "This is obviously a cultivator's villa, but whether it is the villa's gate, walls, or this small bridge, they are all no different from those in the mortal world. There doesn't seem to be any restriction on this small bridge." While he was thinking, Xiao Hua walked in front of the white mist. Inside the white mist, nothing could be seen clearly. He could only vaguely see that the small bridge was still extending into the distance. Xiao Hua's footsteps were still steady. Without the slightest hesitation, he plunged into the white mist. Chapter 1974. However, as soon as his figure entered the white fog, he immediately walked out of it. Not only was the rich heaven and earth spiritual qi rushing towards him, but there was also a group of pavilions on the water in front of him. Rows upon rows of picturesque pavilions were lined up on the water surface. Countless emerald green round leaves covered the water surface, and thumb-thick rhombus stems were raised high into the air. Pink, light green, light blue, pink-white, vermilion, golden yellow, and other flowers of different sizes were floating around the galleries and pavilions, making Xiao Hua feel a little dizzy. Before Xiao Hua could even look around, a burst of ding dong, like the sound of clear spring water, flowed into his ears. A wave of refreshing feeling instantly emerged from Xiao Hua's mind, and actually flowed down along his meridians. Soon, the Jinyuan in his meridians completed a large circulation, and the amount of earth crystal Yao milk was actually more than twice as much as the one he had refined before. Excellent. Xiao Hua was overjoyed and thought, this Manor Lord's cultivation is probably even higher than Marshal Uncle Jen Qing's. Unfortunately, it was only a single cycle. Although the zither music was pleasing to the ear and incomparably comfortable to listen to, it no longer had the effect of refining the earth crystal Yao milk. Senior, this way, please. A beautiful female cultivator walked out of the pavilion in front of Xiao Hua and said with a smile while bowing. Aha! Thank you for your trouble. Xiao Hua nodded and took a few steps forward. The pavilion before his eyes was actually changing like a kaleidoscope. Numerous beautiful and young female cultivators wore clothes that were embroidered with gold and jade, and they either held jade plates, spirit fruits, or feathered fans made from the wings of spirit beasts in their hands as they shuttled back and forth in the pavilion. Giggles and whispers instantly filled Xiao Hua's eyes. The only thing that didn't change was the melodious zither sound that resounded from somewhere in the distance. Yet as far as his eyes could see, there was no trace of it. Xiao Hua followed the female cultivator all the way forward. The female cultivators he met all avoided him and bowed respectfully, calling him senior. The female cultivators each had their own merits. Xiao Hua was dazzled, but he still smiled and nodded slightly. He couldn't see anything in his eyes. If he forced himself to say something, it would be envy in his eyes. Needless to say, with the formation of the Burial Flower Manor, the middle stage foundation establishment cultivator who went out to greet Xiao Hua, and the beautiful female cultivators in the pavilion, Xiao Hua knew that the Manor Lord of the Burial Flower Manor not only had an extraordinary cultivation, but also had an extraordinary background. He had cultivated for many years, but he didn't know when he would be able to reach such a height. But after thinking about it, it wasn't as if he didn't have such an opportunity. Let's take Tianmin Mountain as an example. Huang Tianle seemed to be entrusting him with all the arrays of Tianmin Mountain to him so that he could repair them. It was as if he was putting Tianmin Mountain in front of him. Even if he was really just an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, he could easily take over the Heavenly Gate Mountain. Well, taking a step back, he wasn't so shameless as to use the ambiguous relationship he had with Huang Mengxiang in his dream to take control of the Heavenly Gate Mountain, right? However, not only did he not act according to Huang Tianle's plan and Huang Mengxiang's dream, he instead helped Huang Meng and Huang Mengxiang reach the foundation establishment stage. He taught all of the formation repair techniques to Huang Mengxiang and left with a flick of his sleeves. Xiao Hua didn't think of himself as a saint, and he was greedy for a lot of small favors. But to be honest, he wasn't particularly interested in controlling a sect or a family. He felt that it was a burden. It was far from being alone or traveling the world with the person he loved, free and unfettered. Forget it. I guess this young master isn't that kind of person who is obsessed with fame and craves for luxury. Xiao Hua thought clearly, and some of the admiration in his eyes disappeared. He only smiled and nodded, and his eyes were full of interest as he admired the scenery of the water. Xiao Hua followed the female cultivator around who knows how many bends and walked past who knows how many unique pavilions. But from beginning to end, the elegant sound of the zither continued to linger in his ears, neither high nor low. Just as Xiao Hua felt a little strange and wanted to raise his eyes to look ahead, a huge water screen appeared in front of him. On the water screen, he saw a school of unknown, colorful fish leisurely swimming back and forth, as if they were in midair. Senior, please. The female cultivator walked in front of the water curtain and didn't move forward. She smiled and said, Senior, after passing through here, the Linlang Pavilion is in front. Forgive this junior for not being able to accompany you. Hee. Thank you, fellow Taoist. He cupped his hands and stepped into the water curtain without hesitation. Whoosh. The sound of water echoed, as if he was walking in the lake. Xiao Hua even felt the pressure of the water around him, but his Taoist robe didn't have the slightest trace of water. Apart from illusion, what else could it be? The water curtain wasn't short. Xiao Hua walked no less than 10 steps before he came out of the water curtain. What greeted him made him stunned. Previously, he was used to seeing gorgeous waterside pavilions of different styles. He originally thought that the Manor Master's place would be even more dazzling, but the waterside pavilion in front of him was completely woven out of emerald green bamboo that was as thick as a thumb. However, when his gaze once again fell on the emerald green bamboo that was like amber, sparkling and translucent like jasper, he couldn't help but cry out in surprise in his heart. Waterside orchid bamboo? Xiaohua obviously didn't recognize waterside orchid bamboo. The reason why he was able to call out the name of this bamboo was because he had the inherited memories of the fire ape and Chao Li from the distant past era in his mind, as well as the inheritance of ghost cultivators from Huangyi. How could a name that came from these places be easy to recognize? Damn it, this kind of distant past era variant is the best material to refine wood-type magic tools. Unexpectedly, someone used it to make a pavilion. If I didn't see it with my own eyes. Xiaohua sighed. It seems that compared to this burial flower manor, Tianmen Mountain's Huang clan is like comparing a country bumpkin to generations of scholars. Xiaohua knew that this waterside orchid bamboo was not a simple bamboo. This bamboo contained rich wood-type spiritual energy that attracted a type of spiritual insect called waterside orchid. The waterside orchid was only the size of a baby's pinky nail and was emerald green in color. It liked the aura of waterside orchid bamboo the most and also liked to attach itself to this bamboo. From the time a waterside orchid bamboo was born, it was unknown how many waterside orchids would attach themselves to it. And after these waterside orchids attached themselves to the bamboo, they would no longer move. Even after they died, their bodies would crystallize and become one with the waterside orchid bamboo. Therefore, waterside orchid bamboo was the best material to refine magic tools. In the distant past era, there were many famous wood-type magic tools that were refined from waterside orchid bamboo. It was also because of this that many almighty people used their various magical abilities to obtain these waterside orchid bamboo. This thing was like the mirage butterfly. It had long since disappeared from the Dawn Rain continent. If Xiao Hua didn't obtain some memories from the distant past era, he would have definitely treated this strange-looking bamboo as an ordinary object. Since he knew the rarity of waterside orchid bamboo, Xiao Hua had a bit of expectation towards the Manor Master of Burial Flower Manor. Presumably, he would be able to obtain the Sky Ing grass from this person. Unfortunately, although the Limlang Pavilion was right in front of him, the situation inside was blurry. Only as Xiao Hua approached step by step did his field of vision gradually become clear. This was a pavilion that faced the lake on all four sides. It didn't look any different from what he usually saw. At the end of the pavilion, there was a female cultivator wearing plain clothes who was bending over and playing the 9-string zither. Because her head was lowered, he couldn't see her face clearly. However, her beautiful, pitch-black hair that was like a cloud was coiled up high on top of her head. Along with the sound of the zither, her hair slightly trembled. Just like this, it was as if that trembling had grabbed onto Xiao Hua's heart, attracting all of his attention to the female cultivator's body. The sound of "see" only lasted for a moment before Xiao Hua realized that he had forgotten himself. He used God's guidance and felt a burst of coolness in his heart. He sucked in a breath of cold air and promptly shifted his gaze away, looking all around. There were only a few people in the pavilion. In addition to the female cultivator sitting cross-legged on a praying mat and playing the zither, there were 4 female cultivators who were slightly older. These 4 female cultivators were dressed differently. The colors of their clothes were also completely different. Some were light green, Some were fiery red, some were azure, and some were snow white. It seemed to be somewhat in line with the colors of the four seasons. These four female cultivators all had smiles on their faces. Their gazes were fixed on the female cultivator in the seat of honor, as if they didn't notice Xiao Hua's arrival at all. Late Foundation Establishment Realm. Xiao Hua's gaze caught sight of them. His divine sense very naturally swept out. To his surprise, he discovered that the four female cultivators all had an astonishing cultivation base of Late Foundation Establishment Realm. Thus, in his shock, he promptly withdrew his divine sense and very cleverly stood with his hands by his side. He lowered his head and opened his ears, carefully listening. Xiao Hua didn't know anything about music. The only bit of knowledge he had was that he had heard of Zhen Qing's flute. However, this female cultivator's zither sound was the same as Zhen Qing's flute. They were both extremely pure. Xiao Hua could hear the high mountains and flowing water, the chirping of birds, and the hissing of insects from the zither sound. Even Xiao Hua could almost see the scene of a cheerful yet distressed young girl washing her muslin at the head of the stream in the spring. Zheng, a light sound, like a sharp sword cutting through the spring sun, broke the tranquility and gentleness. The zither sound was unexpectedly cut off. Xiao Hua raised his head in astonishment. He saw the female cultivator's slender and white fingers trembling in the air. Below her fingers, a zither string was like a frozen snake that had withered to the side. Villa Master, the maid closest to the female cultivator, was also astonished and said in a low voice, "Sigh." Hearing the female cultivator's light sigh, that sound was so heartbreaking. Xiao Hua almost wanted to turn into a zither string and let the female cultivator continue to play. Don't be so heartbroken. Following the female cultivator's light sigh, the female cultivator raised her head. Xiao Hua's gaze very naturally swept upwards. The moment he swept his gaze, the corner of his eyes unconsciously twitched. This female cultivator seemed to only be in her 20s, but her appearance was truly pure and lovely. Xiao Hua only saw her once and felt that she was like a celestial being. Xiao Hua had previously seen many female cultivators, such as Sun Shu, Xue Xue, Hongxia Fairy, Huang Mengxiang, and so on. He originally thought that Hongxia Fairy's beauty was the only one in the entire Dawn Rain continent. However, after seeing this female cultivator's beauty, he realized that the so-called Snow White Plum Blossom really had their own strengths. Chapter 1975. However, when he scanned her with his divine sense, he was even more astonished. This young female cultivator was actually at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm. Chun Kuei, take the zither. The female cultivator waved her hand and said in a clear voice, "Yes, Villa Lord." The female cultivator in light blue clothes on the left nodded and walked forward. She reached out and took the 9-string zither. She hugged it in a very natural manner and returned to her original position. "Chiozan, light the incense." The female cultivator ordered in a low voice. "Yes." A blue-clothed female cultivator on the right answered and walked to the side of the table where the zither was placed. She reached out and put down the fist-sized incense burner. Then, she carefully took out a light green incense burner and placed it in the incense burner. Then, she reached out and a true samadhi fire appeared in her palm. With a flick of her finger, she ignited the incense burner. Immediately, a wisp of faint green smoke rushed straight to the top of the pavilion. Then, like a small snake, it swam around the entire pavilion. A refreshing fragrance entered Xiao Hua's nose like a blooming epiphyllum. Good. Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. Although Chiozan's Samadhi True fire wasn't as pure as Xiao Hua's, it was still Samadhi True fire. She actually used it to light incense. "You're called Xiao Hua?" the female cultivator asked softly. Her voice was as clear as pearls falling on a jade plate. Reporting to Senior, this junior is Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. "Greetings, Villa Lord." Xiao Hua's heart trembled, and he quickly bowed. "And, from what you said, you're looking for heavenly ingrass?" The female cultivator went straight to the point. What's the name of your dual cultivation partner? Junior's junior sister is called Shue Shue. She's a disciple of Sun Lei Palace. Xiaohua thought for a moment and didn't hide anything. Junior sister Shue comes from Misty Mountain. She has a hidden lightning attribute constitution and needs heavenly Yin grass to stimulate her bloodline and build her foundation. And so she's a descendant of Misty Mountain. The female cultivator said thoughtfully. Misty Mountain has been very active recently. I heard that they've already taken Phoenix Ridge into their pocket. Ling Feiyun is very outstanding. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. How can Misty Mountain compare to Burial Flower Manor? I didn't expect the Manor Lord to take them seriously. Oh, is that so? A trace of a smile flashed in the female cultivator's eyes. Tell me, how can my Burial Flower Manor look down on Misty Mountain? This. Xiaohua was somewhat at a loss for words. He could only brace himself and say, I've also been to the Misty Mountain, but it seems I don't have enough foundation. Senior Ling Feiyun only has a foundation building cultivation base. Looking at the four sisters standing in front of the Manor Lord, all of them were in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. Even if any one of them went to the Misty Mountain, they would be able to cover the sky with one hand. Manor Lord, how could the Misty Mountain compare to the Burial Flower Manor? Besides, the Misty Mountains are two bare mountains, and there's nothing good there. Just the ice orchid bamboo under your feet is comparable to the entire Misty Mountains, right? Hee, you sure know how to quibble. You even know about the Yulon bamboo. The female cultivator smiled and covered her mouth with her hand, looking extremely adorable. However, Misty Mountain has such a great reputation in the Daybreak continent. Have you heard of my Burial Flower Manor? What do you know about Burial Flower Manor? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Of course I didn't know before today, but after today, I'll definitely know. And I also know about the Misty Mountain because of Junior's sister Shue. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. The female cultivator nodded slightly. If you don't know about my Burial Flower Manor, why did you come here? My Burial Flower Manor doesn't like guests. If you weren't a disciple of the thunder-controlling sect, I would have already killed you and used you as fertilizer. No way, Xiao Hua said in a slightly exaggerated manner. Manor Lord looks very kind. How could you treat a junior like this? You think I won't? Seeing Xiao Hua like this, the female cultivator's expression suddenly changed. Her clothes slightly fluttered, and a force came from all directions of Xiao Hua, directly smashing towards him. Senior, Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. The true essence in his body quickly circulated, and his magic power surged. He continuously rubbed his hands and used the Earth Shield technique. As expected of a disciple of the thunder-controlling sect. You have some skills. The female cultivator looked at Xiao Hua's body that was instantly covered with a sturdy yellow-brown shield, and her eyes unconsciously flashed with surprise. However, relying on this alone, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to escape from my Burial Flower sect. Along with the female cultivator's mocking voice, the shield around Xiao Hua's body broke inch by inch, turning into thick spiritual energy that scattered in the air. However, just as the female cultivator was about to cast another spell, a faint brilliance appeared around Xiao Hua's body, firmly blocking the female cultivator's magic power outside the brilliance. A protective magic treasure? The female cultivator suddenly understood, and immediately used a bit of strength to withdraw her magic power. As expected of the rich and imposing thunder-controlling sect, a disciple who has just entered the Foundation establishment realm can have a protective magic treasure. I'm afraid ordinary disciples won't be able to. Many thanks for Manor Lord's mercy. Xiao Hua slightly frowned, not understanding the Manor Lord's actions. He smiled apologetically and said, Junior is naturally a disciple of the thunder-controlling sect. I have an identity token to prove it. Take out the token and let me see. The female cultivator said without any trace of politeness. When Xiao Hua took out the token, the female cultivator only waved her hand. A force that Xiao Hua felt was irresistible appeared in front of him, and the token flew into the female cultivator's hand. You're indeed from the thunder-controlling sect. Moreover, you're Xiao Hua from the thunder-shocking palace. The female cultivator waved her hand, and the token flew back to Xiao Hua. Forget it. Let me ask you, what did Xie Qin say to you? Did he mention anything else about the heavenly grass? Xiao Hua took the token. He understood that the female cultivator was probing him, and he carefully said, Senior Xie didn't say anything. That day, Junior was only following Martial Uncle Zhenyi to gain experience in the Flame Forest Swamp. Because Martial Uncle Zhenyi was chasing a spirit beast, Junior's cultivation was shallow, so Martial Uncle left me in a place to wait for news. However, Junior waited for a long time, but Martial Uncle Zhenyi didn't return. Junior followed the direction of the summoning talisman to look for him, and then met Senior Xie. Junior is only a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator, so why would Senior Xie say anything? What did he say? Say it word by word. The female cultivator didn't give up and continued to interrogate him. Xiao Hua's heart trembled. He didn't dare to be negligent and said Xie Zhiqian's words word by word. In the end, he said with a bitter smile, Junior knows that this matter has already passed for 4 years. However, because Martial Uncle Zhenyi died at that time, Junior's senior martial brother Xiangyang brought his things back to the lightning-controlling sect. Junior didn't directly return. Therefore, it wasn't until a few days ago, when Junior Martial's sister told Junior about the difficulties of Foundation establishment, that Junior remembered Senior Xie's jade slip. As he said this, a faint blush appeared on Xiao Hua's face. You came out with your Junior Martial sister to gain experience in the Foundation establishment realm? The female cultivator asked with interest. That's right. Xiao Hua nodded. Master always tells Junior who and what in the lightning-changing palace. Junior was annoyed by it. So, Junior found an opportunity to come out with Junior Martial's sister to gain experience. Lightning-changing palace. When the female cultivator heard this, her eyes slightly narrowed. However, she immediately smiled and said, You're quite bold, actually eloping with Junior Martial's sister. Chapter 1976. I'm innocent, Senior. Junior only wants to help Junior Martial's sister build her foundation. If she builds her foundation, Master will have nothing to say and won't use this to threaten Junior. Xiao Hua shouted. When Junior entered the Imperial Thunder Sect, Junior Martial's sister, Shui, took good care of me. If I don't dual cultivate with Junior Martial's sister, Shui, not to mention Junior's heart, even the heavens won't be happy, right? What a good, even the heavens won't be happy. The female cultivator was stunned, then clapped her hands and said, This sentence is actually from the bottom of my heart. Then the female cultivator asked, Who is your master? Senior, please no. It's the helplessness of Thunder Palace and myriad Thunder Valley. Xiao Hua didn't hide it at all. Helplessness? The female cultivator slightly frowned and thought for a moment, then shook her head and said, I've never heard of this name. He's an early gold core stage cultivator? Senior, please no. Master is only in the late foundation establishment stage. Xiao Hua smiled apologetically and said, Presumably, Senior doesn't know. The female cultivator obviously wasn't interested in the late foundation establishment stage. After thinking for a moment, she asked again, Since you know that 4 years have passed, Xie Zhiqian definitely won't be here, and he won't use your Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. And even if he does use your Imperial Thunder Sect's methods, you, a Foundation Establishment disciple, are useless. What are you doing here? Xiao Hua felt a bit strange and secretly said, Do you still need to ask this question? However, he was still respectful and smiled apologetically and said, Junior naturally knows that Senior Xie's scheme has already passed. However, Junior still hopes to get lucky and came to take a look. If I can meet Senior Xie, or a senior related to Senior Xie, Junior wants to ask if there really is the heavenly grass that Senior Xie spoke of. Your tone isn't small. Even if someone has it, would they be willing to exchange it with you? What do you have that would tempt them? The female cultivator sneered. Everything in the world depends on action. If Junior didn't come because he knew there were difficulties, how could I be worthy of Junior Marshall's sister? Xiao Hua said without hesitation. Even if there's a sliver of a chance, Junior will come and try. After saying that, Xiao Hua formed several hand seals on his body. A brilliant light flashed, and the protective magic weapon on Xiao Hua's body flew out and fell into Xiao Hua's hand. Junior is willing to use his most precious protective magic treasure to exchange for the heavenly ingress. Not bad. The quality of your magic treasure is indeed not bad. The female cultivator looked at it and asked, if you don't have it here, are you going to Ming Country's Immortal Ascension Gate? Exactly. Even if I have to go through Mo Zhao Black Forest, I still want to go to Ming Country to take a look. Xiao Hua said resolutely. AI, not bad. You really are a hot-blooded youngster. The female cultivator sighed. She looked at Xiao Hua and asked, have you taken a face-retaining spirit pill? Which aristocratic family is he from? Seeing that the female cultivator wanted to get to the bottom of things, Xiao Hua had no choice but to answer. He smiled apologetically and said, Junior isn't a descendant of an aristocratic family. Before I entered the Imperial Thunder sect, I was an itinerant cultivator. Junior definitely hasn't taken a face-retaining spirit pill. I'm afraid it's because I was fated to take a face-retaining spirit grass when I was young that I took a face-retaining spirit grass. Childhood? The female cultivator chuckled. You mean when you were 17 or 18 years old? Junior doesn't know. Junior used to be a rogue cultivator, so I don't know much. Therefore, whenever I come across something useful, I will try every possible means to take it. That year, it was because of Junior Marshall's sister Shue's help that I sent people to Imperial Thunder Sect. Junior doesn't dare to let Junior Marshall's sister Shue down. Xiao Hua quickly repeated his previous words. Sure enough, the female cultivator nodded and said, it's good to know how to repay kindness with kindness. However, you came to the wrong place. Not only is Xie Zhiqian not here, the heavenly ingress is also not here. Xiao Hua already had a premonition, but he was still disappointed. He looked at the female cultivator and said pitifully, I don't know which senior has the heavenly ingress. If Fairy can tell Junior, Junior will be endlessly grateful. You didn't know my burial flower manor before, right? The female cultivator didn't answer his question. Xiao Hua braced himself and said with an apologetic smile, Junior's knowledge is shallow. I really don't know. The female cultivator raised her eyes and looked at Chun Kuei. Chun Kuei said with a smile, Xiao Hua, listen well. My manor lord's name is Chun. If you receive benefits from my manor lord, don't forget this name. You little girl, who told you to speak so much? Chun Yi rebuked, but her face didn't show any anger. Chun Kuei giggled and didn't speak anymore. You all can leave first. Chun Yi waved her hand and said, yes. Chun Kuei and the others were a bit shocked. They all glanced at Xiao Hua and slowly walked past Xiao Hua from both sides and left Linlang Pavilion. Xiao Hua was also a bit stunned. It was only the first time he saw Chen Yi. Moreover, she was a young and beautiful gold core cultivator. Chen Yi's actions made him very puzzled. Linlang Pavilion was abnormally quiet for a while. Although there was a cool breeze blowing from time to time, the incense was still straight up, not affected by the cool breeze at all. The faint fragrance didn't become stronger because the incense had been burning for a long time. It seemed to always be faint, just like Chen Yi's faint eyebrows. Xiao Hua, have you always been in Thunderclap Palace? After a long while, Chun Yi seemed to be hesitating about something. Then, she asked, according to what I know, when your Thunderclap Sect's disciples have just entered the sect, they all have to cultivate in Thunderclap Palace, right? Xiao Hua blinked and nodded. Just as Manor Lord said, it's exactly so. However, this junior is a loose cultivator and is quite ostracized by others. Therefore, when I entered the Thunderclap sect, I went to a remote place to find a medicine garden and didn't listen to lectures in Thunderclap Palace. Oh, so it's like that. Chen Yi was obviously a bit disappointed. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but stopped. After a long while, she seemed to be unwilling to give up and asked, Xiao Hua, how many times have you been to Thunderclap Palace? Xiao Hua's eyes turned slightly. Looking at Chun Yi's appearance, it was obvious that she wanted to inquire about something. However, thinking about his pitiful understanding of the Thunderclap sect, even if Chun Yi searched his soul, he couldn't possibly say anything, right? Therefore, Xiao Hua calmly said, if Fairy Chun has something to ask, there's no harm in saying it. This junior is only a foundation-building disciple of Thunderclap Palace. As long as it doesn't involve the sect's secrets, this junior can answer anything. Actually, if it really is a secret, does Fairy Chun think that this junior, a loose cultivator, would know? TCH, Chun Yi rolled her eyes at him and said with obvious shyness, if I want to know the Thunderclap sect's secrets, would I still need to ask you? AI, forget it, Chun Yi sighed. Her bright eyes looked at the misty lake and said, tell me everything you've seen and heard in the Thunderclap sect. If you accept my goodwill, I'll tell you the whereabouts of the heavenly Grass. So simple? Xiao Hua was stunned. You don't care about anything? And you only need to say it. Just treat it as relieving my boredom. Chun Yi turned her neck and said indifferently, if it was someone else, they would definitely be happy. It was just a trivial matter, so he could just say it. However, Xiao Hua was different from others. Most of the matters in the Thunderclap sect were secrets. He didn't dare to casually say anything, even if it was something slightly related. Many intelligent people might be able to see through it. What if Chun Yi continued to ask? Wouldn't Xiao Hua have to tell even more lies to cover it up? However, with the current situation, Xiao Hua could not say it. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua smiled and said, if Manor Lord likes it, this junior will tell you everything about how I entered the Thunderclap sect. Unspeak. Chun Yi's voice was still indifferent. Thus, Xiao Hua vividly described how he and Xue Xue entered the Thunderclap sect together. Naturally, Xue Xue became the main character who saved him. She was incomparably brave. At this moment, Chun Yi didn't show any reaction. She only listened quietly. Xiao Hua panicked when he saw that Chun Yi wasn't interested. He pondered for a moment before he began to talk about the Feather Immortal Gathering. When Xiao Hua mentioned that Ancestor Zhenqing was leading a team to the Feather Immortal Gathering, Chun Yi's eyes lit up and the corners of her eyes twitched. However, her body was still lazy and Xiao Hua didn't notice it. Soon after, Chun Yi's ears started to listen to Xiao Hua. When Xiao Hua saw that Chun Yi was interested in the Feather Immortal Gathering, he naturally didn't hide anything. He explained everything that had nothing to do with him. It took him an hour to finish speaking. When Xiao Hua was done, his mouth was dry. He looked at Chun Yi anxiously. Chun Yi's face was filled with joy. She waved her hand and said, Dong Jin, bring a cup of spiritual tea over. Not long after, Dong Jin came over with a jade plate with a cup of spiritual tea on it. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Dong Jin. Xiao Hua smiled. He took the cup of spiritual tea and drank it in one gulp. Then, he placed it back on the jade plate. Dong Jin wasn't like Chun Kuei. He didn't give Xiao Hua any face. He took the jade plate and left. The spiritual tea turned into a strand of refreshing spiritual energy and merged into Xiao Hua's meridians. The previous irritation disappeared. Hee, that Ancestor Zhenqing of yours is quite interesting, Chun Yi said with a smile. He's already in the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Seeing that Chun Yi had a question, Xiao Hua hurriedly smiled and said, yes, Ancestor Zhenqing was already in the early stage of the Golden Core realm. I haven't seen him in all these years. I think he's already in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. I hope so. Chun Yi shook her head slightly. You're only in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. There's still some distance between you and the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. How would you know how difficult it is to cultivate the Golden Core realm? We haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. Zhenqing might not have made any progress. Ancestor Zhenqing is such a good person. He's naturally protected by the heavenly Tao, Xiao Hua said with a smile. I was able to advance to the Foundation Establishment realm. Is it also thanks to Ancestor Zhenqing? Is it? Jinqing is a golden core realm cultivator. Why would he guide an aura-refining disciple like you? Chun Yi asked curiously. Could it be because of your outstanding performance at the Feather Immortal Gathering? Or, I know. You saved that female cultivator called Sun Shu. Manor Lord is indeed wise. Xiao Hua praised. Ancestor Jinqing felt that I had helped him. Not long after I returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect, he gave me some of the insights he had when he was condensing his golden core. Meddlesome, Chun Yi sneered. How can the insights of a golden core realm cultivator be compared to the insights of a foundation establishment realm cultivator? This Jinqing only wants to return the favor. I'm afraid he'll make a mistake. Chapter 1977. Fortunately, I'm safe and sound, Xiao Hua said with a smile. I'm very grateful to Martial Uncle Jinqing from the bottom of my heart. Let me see the jade slip, Chun Yi said without any trace of politeness. Xiao Hua hesitated. This, Manor Lord, the jade slip is with me, but there are some secrets of my Imperial Thunder Sect inside. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for Senior to look at it. Erase the secrets of your Imperial Thunder Sect, Chun Yi said without hesitation. I just want to see the core condensation heart of your Imperial Thunder Sect's golden core cultivator. This, Xiao Hua hesitated. That day, Jinqing told him not to spread it. Although he didn't make him swear, how could he take it out so easily? You only need to take out the jade slip. I won't look at your so-called Imperial Thunder Sect secrets, and I'll tell you the whereabouts of the heavenly Een grass. Chun Yi said coldly. I'm also a golden core cultivator. Your martial uncle Jinqing is also a junior in front of me. What's there to be afraid of? Manor Lord, you're really forcing me. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He was really at his wit's end. I promise I'll only look at it myself. I won't let anyone else see it. And I won't spread it, Chun Yi said with a smile. Won't spread it. How could it be that easy? Xiao Hua thought about his solemn vow that day. Now, he knew that it was easy to make a promise, but it was really difficult to do it. Sometimes a heart oath was a good method. Martial Uncle, Junior is untalented. I'll return to the Imperial Thunder Sect and ask Martial Uncle for forgiveness. Xiao Hua said in his heart. Manor Lord, can you swear a heart oath, and you won't spread it? Of course not. Chun Yi refused without any trace of politeness. This is a condition for you. What does it have to do with me? Forget it. Xiao Hua thought about it and really didn't want to give up such an opportunity. Even if he went to the Immortal Ascension sect, whether Xie Zhiqian would see him or not was two different matters. Xiao Hua felt that he should be flexible now. With that, Xiao Hua took out the jade slip and erased everything related to Taoist Master Lu Peng, leaving only Jinqing's pill condensation experience. Only then did he pass it to Chun Yi. You're a tactful person, Chun Yi laughed. However, you've gone back on your promise to your martial uncle. Sigh, there's no other way. Xiao Hua spread out his hands. For the sake of Junior Martial Sisters Foundation building, I'm willing to bear the punishment of breaking my promise. Once I return to the Imperial Thunder Sect, I'll ask Martial Uncle Jinqing for forgiveness. Chun Yi no longer paid attention to him. She only immersed her divine sense into the jade slip. In such a short period of time, she actually spent the time it took to eat a meal. If Xiao Hua didn't know that she was a middle-stage gold core cultivator, he would definitely think that she was comprehending the secret method in front of him. However, right when Chun Yi withdrew her divine sense and raised her hand with the intention of returning the jade slip to Xiao Hua, Chun Yi rolled her eyes and took out another jade slip with a flip of her hand. She closed her eyes for a moment before tossing the jade slip to Xiao Hua and said, This experience of core condensation is beneficial to my cultivation, so I'll take it for now. Take this jade slip. It'll be of use to you when you condense your core. Villa Master. Xiao Hua took the jade slip and said in surprise, This? What is this? Chun Yi unceremoniously took the jade slip and said, Since you've already shown it to me, why can't I keep the jade slip? It's just the difference between 90 steps and 100 steps. Seeing Chun Yi put the jade slip away, What could Xiao Hua say? He could only put away his own jade slip with a crying face. In his heart, he was thinking about how he should explain it to Jen Qing. However, Chun Yi's actions naturally caused Xiao Hua to be suspicious. But before he could think too much, Chun Yi said again, Xiao Hua, actually, I also don't know the whereabouts of the heavenly yin grass. Xiao Hua was shocked. Senior, what do you mean? Junior took the jade slip and, cough, cough, Chun Yi revealed a displeased expression and said indifferently, wait for me to finish speaking. Xiao Hua was indeed angry and could only smile apologetically. Junior was impatient. Senior, please don't blame me. And Chun Yi nodded. Actually, even if you went to the Immortal Ascension sect and Xie Zhiqian was willing to see you, he wouldn't tell you the whereabouts of the heavenly yin grass. Because or rather, we didn't even go. It can't be. Xiao Hua was flabbergasted, but then his face revealed a hint of joy. He said, this was something that happened 4 years ago. This junior thought that seniors had already returned. Who knew that? You still hadn't gone? What do you know? Chun Yi said coldly. It's only been 4 years. When we want to look for spiritual herbs, it took more than 10 years just to prepare. Don't talk about this. The location is. Moreover, it's a very important matter. What is 4 years? Chun Yi's words were vague, and she didn't say the location. You've already prepared for 4 years, and it's still not ready? Xiao Hua was surprised. Although he had prepared for several adventures, it definitely didn't take this long. Chun Yi looked up at Xiao Hua as if she was thinking about something. She said casually, this matter has been prepared for many years. Xie Zhiqian went to the Flame Forest Swamp to look for the last item. It should have been prepared 4 years ago. But why hasn't there been any news for 4 years? It's because I'm not the person in charge, so I don't know. Xiao Hua frowned when he heard this. Seeing this, Chun Yi said with a smile, don't worry. Although it's just a guess, it might be inside. If it's really there, I'll take it out. You can use your protective treasure to exchange it with me. I won't let you down. AI, thank you, Senior. Xiao Hua bowed and said, everything depends on Senior's guidance. No need. Chun Yi waved her hand. Your protective treasure is also not bad. It's the same value as the heavenly yin grass. And I still have to tell you in advance. If it's not there, or I can't take it out, our deal can't be done. Yes, this junior understands. Xiao Hua looked at Chun Yi's young face. He knew that she was an old woman who was hundreds of years old. She couldn't be like him and recklessly stand up for some inexplicable matter. Then Junior will take his leave. When there's news about the heavenly yin grass, I asked Senior to send a message to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Or Junior will come here to find Senior after training. Xiao Hua bowed and said, wait for my message. Chun Yi said with a smile. Xiao Hua felt uneasy in his heart. However, seeing that Chun Yi didn't welcome him to Buried Flower Manor, he could only reluctantly nod and say, I hope Senior will remember this matter. You brat. Chun Yi immediately heard Xiao Hua's tone. She sneered and said, how can a golden core cultivator's words not count? If you're willing, you can come here to find my Buried Flower Manor after training. Chapter 1978. Junior doesn't dare. Junior has offended Senior. Xiao Hua panicked and hurriedly apologized. Chun Yi waved her sleeves and ordered, Dong Jin, bring 3 cups of snow wine and invite Xiao Hua to drink. When Xiao Hua heard it was spiritual wine again, he hurriedly waved his hand. Senior, thank you for your kindness. Junior doesn't like the taste of spiritual wine. How can I take advantage of you? When Chun Yi called him old, Xiao Hua felt awkward. However, he understood that Chun Yi took Jen Qing's jade strip and felt burdened, so she used the spiritual wine to repay him. As she spoke, Dong Jin, who was dressed in snow-white clothes, held a jade tray in her hand. There were 3 jade cups the size of fists on the tray, and they were filled with spirit wine that was almost transparent. She had yet to drink it, but a cold and intoxicating fragrance wafted into her nose. This snow wine is one of the 4 great spiritual wines of my Burial Flower Manor. If female cultivators drink it, they'll always be youthful. What about male cultivators? I don't know its effects. However, it definitely won't intoxicate people, Chun-Yi said with a smile. She looked as cute as a little junior sister. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He smiled apologetically and said, "Can Junior bring this spiritual wine to Junior sister?" "No." Chun-Yi waved her sleeves. "It's for you to drink." "All right." Xiaohua was helpless. He could only reach out and pick up the jade cup. When his fingers touched the jade cup, a cold sensation pierced his finger bones. Good heavens! It's so cold, but the spiritual wine didn't freeze? Moreover, if it enters the stomach, won't the 5 viscera and 6 bowels all turn to ice? Although Xiaohua thought so, he didn't dare to be negligent. He raised his head and poured the spiritual wine into his mouth. Then, he wrapped it with his true essence. Xiaohua felt an incomparably cold stream enter his stomach. Then it turned into countless streams that flowed to his limbs and veins. In an instant, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly used earth expansion to slowly refine the ice-type spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the spiritual wine. When the spiritual energy was completely refined, a feeling of breaking out of a cocoon and seeing spring and winter appeared in his meridians. It continuously spread to his limbs and bones. After several breaths, it stopped. Then a lively feeling rose in his lower dantian. "How is it?" Chun-Yi asked with a smile. "Is it comparable to your jade slip?" Xiaohua looked inside his body for a moment, and with a smile on his face, he said apologetically, "This is indeed the famous wine of Burial Flower Manor. Junior will be exempted from half a month of bitter cultivation." It's good that you know." Chun-Yi snorted. "Why aren't you drinking it?" "Yes," Xiaohua replied, and drank the 2 cups of wine separately. At this moment, Chun Kuei hurriedly walked in and said somewhat fearfully, reporting to Manor Lord, "This servant has bad news." "Okay, go ahead." Chun-Yi was obviously in a good mood. She raised her eyebrows and said, "This." Spring Kuei hesitated a little. "The youth-retaining grass in the spring garden, huh? What's wrong with the youth-retaining grass?" Chun-Yi's eyes widened when she heard this. She said angrily, "Hurry up and tell me why you're stuttering." Plop! Chun Kuei knelt down on the ground and said loudly with her head on the ground, "Manor Lord, please understand. It's all because this servant was not strict enough. That youth-retaining grass seems to have been contaminated by poisonous saliva. I'm afraid it won't work." "What? Useless thing." Chun-Yi was furious. She stood up and waved her hand. "Papa!" She slapped Chun Kuei's face twice. "When did this happen? Why did you only come to report now? I've always treated you well, and you're also the head of the 4 servants. Isn't it because the youth-retaining grass is in the spring garden? If anything happens to the youth-retaining grass, I'll immediately take your life. Manor Lord, please understand. It's about what happened just now." Chun Kuei, who was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, didn't dare to resist. With a bitter face, she said in a low voice, "This servant also just received a report from a servant. Moreover, my Burial Flower Manor hasn't opened the restriction for a full 5 years." Chun-Yi's cold and angry gaze swept over Xiaohua. Xiaohua, who had just finished drinking the spirit wine, felt Chun-Yi's gaze. With a helpless expression, he said with a bitter smile, "Junior can swear that I absolutely have nothing to do with this matter. Junior also doesn't dare to leave the manor right now. Let's wait until Senior's matter comes to light." "Oomph." Chun-Yi coldly snorted and said, "You better have nothing to do with this matter. Otherwise, you'll definitely regret going against me." Seeing Chun-Yi's face change in an instant, Xiaohua's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. There was only panic on his face. "Xiaolan." Chun-Yi slowly walked out and ordered, "Take Xiaohua away and arrange a place to rest. Have someone take good care of him." "Yes, this servant understands." Xiaolan, who was dressed in red, no longer had the previous smile on her face. She replied very fearfully. After Chun-Yi quickly left Limlang Pavilion, Xiaolan turned her head and said, "Come with me." Yes, Xiaohua responded and also followed Xiaolan out of Linlang Pavilion. There were many waterside pavilions around Linlang Pavilion. They all seemed to be places to rest. However, Xiaolan didn't stop. She only took Xiaohua out of the restriction and went along the small bridge to the lake. On the shore, Haidang and Plum Blossom weren't there. Xiaolan also didn't send any communication talismans. She only stood there for a moment. Immediately, two female cultivators in the early stage of foundation establishment quickly walked over and bowed. "Greetings, milord. This is the manor master's honored guest. You must treat him well. You are not allowed to walk around the manor as you please," Xiaolan coldly ordered. "Yes, this servant understands." The two female cultivators' faces were slightly shocked. They both bowed and answered. Afterwards, Xiaolan ignored Xiaohua. She turned around and walked towards the other side of the lake. Xiaohua, on the other hand, followed the two female cultivators in another direction. After walking for half a cup of tea's time, they arrived in front of an exquisite pavilion. The female cultivator didn't open any restriction, but just pushed the door open. She raised her hand and said, "Fellow Taoist, please." "AI, thank you, fellow Taoists." Xiaohua naturally knew that Burial Flower Manor was within a formation. This small pavilion was disdained to set up another restriction. After Xiaohua entered the pavilion, the two female cultivators didn't leave. They stood on both sides of the pavilion in silence. Xiaohua used his divine sense to scan the entire pavilion. He didn't find anything strange, so he sighed and sat down. He was clear in his heart that he wasn't in a cage right now. It was better for him to obediently follow Chun Yi's arrangements. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to escape suspicion and might even lose his life here. First, it was eldest senior apprentice brothers, Thunder Beast Inner Core. I had no choice but to seek out Uncle Master Jinyi. I risked being killed by a golden core cultivator at any time to fight for it. Fortunately, I had Uncle Master Jinyi as my backer, so others gave me some face. At that time, I was only a little chi refinement cultivator, so I was able to get some scraps. An eldest senior brother can be considered to be lucky. In the end, this Xiao picked up a loophole and helped eldest senior brother obtain the inner core. This time, for Shui, I had no choice but to come to this Burial Flower Manor that I've never heard of. This female cultivator, named Chun Yi, is actually at the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Even Xie Jiqian is willing to be her lackey. I'm afraid I won't be as lucky as last time. I have to be careful about everything. Once Chun Yi finds out who the culprit is, I'll leave as soon as possible. Once they find the heavenly Ing grass, I'll just exchange my protective magic treasure with them. However, those who can tamper with Burial Flower Manor are certainly not ordinary people. How could Chun Yi find the culprit so easily? I'm afraid it won't be easy for me to leave. Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh. I wonder if Shui has already arrived at Haoming City? I'll just consider myself unlucky and cultivate. I'm afraid there won't be any results even after 8 to 10 days. However, contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, just an hour later, the two female cultivators guarding the door pushed open the door and entered. They faintly said, "Fellow Taoist, please follow me to Mu Jing Garden. The Manor Lord has something to ask you." This is bad. When Xiaohua heard Chun Yi call him over, he naturally knew it wasn't good. The youth-retaining grass, tainted by the poisonous saliva, must have something to do with him. If it wasn't related, Chun Yi definitely wouldn't have thought of him. Sure enough, after the two female cultivators left the pavilion, walked across the lake, and arrived at a bamboo garden surrounded by a gurgling stream protected by layers upon layers of great formations. Xiaohua saw many female cultivators of varying cultivation levels standing around the bamboo garden. Most of them were at the aura refining realm, and each of them held their breaths and condensed their qi. Without waiting for Xiaohua to approach, an early-stage foundation establishment female cultivator blocked the three of them and said in a low voice, "Junior Marshall Sisters, who is this? How can he approach Mu Jing Garden?" One of the female cultivators took out a command tablet and answered in a low voice, reporting to Senior Marshal Sister Tao Hua. This is a cultivator who entered my burial flower manor today. The manor lord sent a message asking him to come in for questioning. Old Tao Hua took the command tablet, looked at it for a moment, and handed it back to the female cultivator. She nodded and said, "Wait a moment." After she finished speaking, she clapped her hands, and a flower branch appeared in her hand. On it, thumb-sized peach blossoms were about to bloom. Tao Hua urged her magic power, and the peach blossoms on the flower branch broke free from the branch. They spiraled in the air and gradually converged into a large peach blossom. Soon after, they flew back into the bamboo forest behind Tao Hua. With a whoosh, a burst of fragrance, the bamboo in the bamboo forest slowly separated, and a small path appeared in the crisscrossing light and shadow. Tao Hua looked at Xiao Hua and coldly said, "Fellow Taoist, please follow me." "Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist." Xiao Hua's expression didn't look good. Tao Hua raised her eyebrows and looked at Xiao Hua with some astonishment. However, she didn't say anything and turned around and stepped into the small path in the bamboo forest. The small path in the bamboo forest was actually very long, and there were many forks in the path. After walking for a while, Xiao Hua came to realize that this bamboo forest was definitely a maze. It seemed that Chun Yi really treasured the beauty retaining grass. This treasure of hers had a problem, and it was because of Xiao Hua's arrival. The deeper Xiao Hua went into the bamboo forest, the colder his heart became. After walking for the time it took to drink a cup of tea, in front of a thin bamboo that didn't seem to have an exit, the peach blossoms swayed, and his figure rushed into the thin bamboo, disappearing. Xiao Hua sighed. He could only brace himself and walk in. Chapter 1979. Xiao Hua only felt a slight blur in front of his eyes, as if he had passed through a restriction. When he raised his head to look again, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Originally, Xiao Hua had already felt that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was abundant in Burial Flower Manor. It was the first time he had seen something like this in his life. However, when he set foot in Mu Jing Garden, he knew that he was wrong. Not to mention the refreshing air that assaulted his face, the abundant spiritual qi of heaven and earth was abnormally lively. His eyes were filled with the brilliant spring scenery, the joyous cries of birds, the flowing water of a small stream, the lush flowers, the emerald green, and the hundreds of flowers competing in beauty. It made him feel as if he had walked into another world. Damn it, the spring flower is named after spring. The Mu Jing Garden that she is in charge of is naturally dominated by spring. This place uses great magic power and illusions to create a spring scene. Then, summer, autumn, and winter, aren't they all different places? This Burial Flower Manor. How many secular people are envious of this place? Xiao Hua didn't dare to use his divine sense too much. He only used his bright eyes to look around. In Xiao Hua's eyes, all kinds of spirit grasses were divided into two categories. One was those that existed in the space, and the other was naturally those that didn't exist in the space. Although Tao Hua didn't turn her head to look at him, her divine sense had always been paying attention to the back. Seeing Xiao Hua's astonishment, she had long despised him in her heart. She slightly swayed her hips and brought Xiao Hua through a field of spiritual flowers that looked like morning glories. They arrived at a place where a small stream crossed. She stopped and bowed, saying, "Manor Lord, this servant has brought this fellow Taoist here." Umph! A sharp, cold snort sounded from the other side of the stream. Then, on the other side of the stream, where the space was, there was a slight distortion. It was as if a layer of gauze was lifted, revealing a jade-like medicinal field. "Xiao Hua, come in." Chun Yi's voice sounded. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly walked into the medicinal field and saw that it was about 1 mu of land. The ground was emerald green, and it was filled with the best quality water-type spiritual stones. Around the water-type spiritual stones, there were several piles of yellow soil. In the soil, there were several thin and weak-looking spiritual herbs. The spirit grass was not even as tall as a palm. When it pulled out a few slender stems from its roots, it looked no different from ordinary grass. However, at this moment, the green, slender stems of the spirit grass were covered with pitch-black fine lines, as if it was stained with ink. Beside the spiritual grass, Chun Yi's face was ashen. Her eyes seemed to be about to spit fire as she stared at Xiaohua. Beside Chun Yi, Chun Kuei was kneeling on the ground. Her eyes were red and her face was pale. Xiaolan and the others were also standing behind Chun Kuei, their eyes flashing with fear. They did not have the calmness of a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. There were also 3 or 4 older female cultivators beside him. They were all at the late stage of foundation establishment. At this moment, they were all frowning as they looked at the spirit herb. Occasionally, they would whisper to each other, but their eyes were filled with confusion. Not far from the spirit herb, a female cultivator dressed in pink robes was lying on the ground. Her limbs were curled up, and she was clearly lifeless. Bitter, Xiaohua quickly withdrew his gaze and obediently walked in front of Chun Yi. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Manor Lord." I wonder why Manor Lord called this little one over? Chun Yi's gaze coldly swept over Xiaohua, as if she wanted to see through him. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, she asked, "Xiaohua, do you know Sun Qian?" "Sun Qian?" Xiaohua was stunned. He blankly shook his head and said, "Junior does not know Sun Qian. I have never heard of such a name." "Swear a hard oath," Chun Yi said without any trace of politeness. It was as if she would immediately search Xiaohua's soul if he did not swear a hard oath. How could Xiaohua dare to be negligent? He hurriedly swore a vicious hard oath. Only then did he smile apologetically and said, "Manor Lord, Junior really has nothing to do with this matter. This is the first time Junior has heard of Burial Flower Manor, and I'm also a small foundation establishment cultivator. How could I dare to covet this? Beauty-retaining grass?" Chun Yi's heart stirred. She asked, "When you were a loose cultivator, did you take this kind of spirit grass? Do you have any impression of it? Where did you take it?" "Good. Let Manor Lord know. This Junior really doesn't have any impression of it. If Manor Lord didn't remind me, how would this Junior know that this is the beauty-retaining grass?" Xiaohua bitterly smiled. "This beauty-retaining grass is no different from ordinary grass. Manor Lord." At this moment, the whispering old women stopped talking. One of them walked forward and said, "Forgive us for being incompetent. This is a mixture of several kinds of beast poisons. It was originally a mixture of poisonous saliva that was specially used to deal with cultivators. I don't know what it was mixed with, but it actually had an effect on the beauty-retaining grass. Moreover, this poisonous saliva seems to have no effect on other spirit grasses. It seems that someone has been plotting for a long time. Although we can detoxify the poison, those detoxification methods may not work on this mixture of beast poisons. If there is an accident, the beauty-retaining grass will definitely not survive. Elder Mu, how confident are you?" Chun Yi's expression became even more gloomy as she whispered, "This." Elder Mu turned his head and exchanged glances with the others. He bitterly smiled and said, "I'm afraid there is not even a 10% chance. You wait." Chun Yi was obviously anxious. She was about to get angry, but when the words came out, she restrained herself. "We have failed Manor Lord's trust." Elder Mu's tone became gloomy again. "We study the spirit grass technique, mostly on how to grow and how to reproduce. Even when we detoxify, it is only with attribute poison. Beast poisons are really rare. Therefore, we did not dare try. Promise." "Forget it. That bitch has been dealing with me for many years. She already knew that this beauty-retaining grass is the root of Zhonghua Manor. She deliberately wanted to destroy this spirit grass. Her methods are not inferior to yours, so I don't blame you." Chun Yi looked around and saw the 5 beauty-retaining grasses in the medicine garden. She waved her hand and said, "I still need to rely on you to detoxify the poison. You all should study it carefully first. In the end, if there's really no way, then try again. Yes, we will continue to look. Elder Mu bowed and said. But when she turned around and looked at the female cultivators who were also elders, she still had a helpless expression on her face. In fact, there was even a hint of excitement in her helplessness. Xiaohua listened on the side, and his heart unconsciously moved. His eyes turned a few times, and he was a little hesitant. He naturally thought of the secret detoxification method that he occasionally learned from Tianmen Mountain's Huang family a few years ago. However, he had only used it on people and had never used it on spirit grass. Moreover, if he spoke now, Chunny would probably be suspicious, right? However, if he did not speak now, when the poisonous saliva penetrated even deeper into the beauty-retaining grass, even the method of fighting poison with poison would not work, right? Xiaohua's eyes narrowed slightly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Chun Yi coldly say, "Come, take away this bitch's corpse. She has no reason to put it here and dirty my eyes." "Yes," Dong Jin responded. With a wave of her hand, she took the female cultivator's corpse lying on the ground and quickly walked out of the medicine garden. Chun Yi's gaze fell on Chun Kuei again. Chapter 1980. Lowly's servant. You can't even do such a small thing properly. How dare I treat you so well? Chun Kuei hurriedly kowtowed and cried, "It's all my fault. I was careless. I only thought that nothing would happen in the past few decades, so..." As she spoke, she was already choking with sobs. Her forehead was already bleeding from the hard spirit stone. "Humph. You only regret after something happened," Chun Yi said angrily. "What were you doing earlier? If the beauty-retaining grass can't save her, you lowly servants of the Spring Division will die." "Yes, I know." Chun Kuei kowtowed again, blood flowing down her face. "It's all my fault. The other sisters have nothing to do with the beauty-retaining grass. Please spare their lives. How many spirit stones are their lives worth? Even if they die 10,000 times, they can't be compared to my 5 stalks of beauty-retaining grass," Chun Yi said coldly. Chun Kuei still didn't dare to stop kowtowing. More blood flowed down her face. "Villa Master." Xiaohua thought for a moment and bowed. "Junior has something to say. Is it possible?" What? What did you think of? Do you have an impression of that slut?" Chun Yi coldly glanced at Xiaohua. Her gaze almost pierced through Xiaohua's body. "All right, Villa Master knows. Junior really doesn't know Sun Qian, let alone have seen her before." Xiaohua smiled apologetically. "However, Junior knows a secret method to cure poison with poison." "What? You can cure the poison of the beauty-retaining grass?" Chun Yi said unexpectedly. The 5 elders of my burial flower manor didn't dare to say anything. "Yes, Junior also doesn't dare to confirm," Xiaohua said embarrassedly. "Moreover, this secret method has only been used on cultivators. It has never been used on spirit herbs. However, since it's a secret method, it can be tried. It's better than being helpless." But what?" Chun Yi frowned. "But Junior has scruples in his heart. I'm afraid Senior will misunderstand Junior. It's already premeditated." Xiaohua really couldn't escape, so he could only calmly say, It's good that you didn't say it. Now that you say it, there's really such a possibility." Chun Yi sneered and said, "If you didn't come to my burial flower manor, my 5 beauty-retaining grass would be fine. But when you came, they were tainted by the poisonous saliva. Moreover, you have a ready-made antidote. How can you not make me think this way?" "Sai, that's right. This Junior knows as well." Xiaohua smiled apologetically and said, "But if I don't detoxify the poison now, after a long time, there won't be any medicine that can cure it. Junior should also..." "That's right." Chun Yi sneered. "Since even Chun Kuei couldn't survive, how could you? That would be a joke." Xiaohua didn't have the time to resent his bad luck. He cupped his hands and said, "Then this Junior was also forced into a corner. I can only force myself to try." "And how confident are you?" Chun Yi looked at Xiaohua from head to toe and asked. "Junior is not as knowledgeable as the elders. I only have a rough understanding of spiritual herbs. Xiao Hua shook his head and said, Moreover, I'm not good at using poison or detoxification. I'm just trying my luck with that secret technique. I don't have any confidence at all. Then you should stand aside first. Chun Yi sneered. How can my burial flower manor's beauty-retaining grass be the grass that you tried? Xiao Hua didn't expect Chun Yi to flatly refuse, and his face was very embarrassed. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Chun Yi looked at the elders who were whispering and asked, Elders, how is it going? In my opinion, if we don't make a move now, I'm afraid the beauty-retaining grass will be hopeless. Yes, we will make a move now. Elder Mu slowly nodded and said, This little friend's method of fighting poison with poison is quite novel. However, I don't dare to try it. That method is really dangerous. Either it succeeds, or it fails miserably. After saying that, Elder Mu clapped her hand and took out a thumb-sized jade bottle from her storage bag. She grabbed it with her hand, and a ball of light red jade liquid flew out from the jade bottle. Then, with a flick of her hand, the jade liquid flew above the beauty-retaining grass. Sisters, Elder Mu lightly reprimanded. Just do as I said just now and follow the steps. Yes, we will listen to Fellow Mu's instructions. The four of them softly responded. Fellow Shui and Fellow Chun, go first. Elder Mu instructed. Two of the female cultivators stepped forward. Each extended their left palm, and their hands slowly formed an extremely complicated seal. When their hands became extremely heavy, they opened their mouths, and a trace of dark red blood essence flew into the air. Go! The two female cultivators flipped their hands, and the seal was precisely on the blood essence. The blood essence turned into two small nets and fell on top of the jade liquid. The jade liquid trembled for a while, and 30% of it separated from the jade liquid and fell on top of the blood essence net towards the beauty-retaining grass. See, a light sound like hot water falling on snow actually produced a burst of pitch-black smoke. Good, fellow Mo, fellow Min, quickly. Elder Mu was overjoyed when she saw this and immediately urged. The other two female cultivators also didn't dare to be negligent and did the same thing. Sure enough, a layer of smoke flew up, but this time it was clearly much less. Seeing that there was still 30% of the jade liquid left, Elder Mu had already formed a seal and hid it on top of the jade liquid. However, before the jade liquid fell on the beauty-retaining grass, the beauty-retaining grass trembled for a while. The pitch-black veins that had faded just now suddenly became darker, and there were a few strands of yellow in the pitch-black veins. Bad, Elder Mu blurted out. She rubbed her hands again, and waves of magic power hit the jade liquid. Unfortunately, when the jade liquid landed on the beauty-retaining grass this time, not only did it not create a layer of smoke, but the black color of the beauty-retaining grass became even darker. It was even worse than before. The leaves of the beauty-retaining grass slowly drooped down, gradually turning yellow and black. It was obvious that it could no longer live. Villa Master, seeing this, Elder Mu was a little dumbfounded and explained, And the others, I'm afraid it's beyond our power. This mixed poison is too strange. The detoxification method can only remove one layer, but it can't remove the other layer, and it may even add fuel to the fire of the other layer. I say no more. Chinyi's face was extremely ugly. She stared at the dying beauty-retaining grass, and her eyes flashed with malice, as if she was about to lose control of her emotions. Xiao Hua. Almost at the same time, Chun Yi opened her mouth. You go and try. But Xiao Hua hesitated. He was afraid that if he couldn't detoxify it, Chun Yi's anger would be all over him, and he would lose his life in an instant. Hurry up, Chun Yi said fiercely, unless you don't want to live now. Looking at Chun Yi's fierceness that was stronger than her pressure, Xiao Hua shrunk his neck and didn't dare to say anything. He quickly walked to the same beauty-retaining grass in the distance, and with a wave of his hand, he took out a bottle of green python's venom from the space. What is this? Chun Yi's voice followed. Green python's venom. Xiaohua didn't dare to hide and quickly answered. Chun-Yi snorted and didn't comment. Seeing that Chun-Yi didn't speak, Xiaohua closed his eyes and calmed his heart. He grabbed a drop of venom from the jade bottle, and then, just like how he detoxified the cultivators on Tianmen Mountain, he divided it into 9 drops and used a secret technique to put them into the beauty-retaining grass. Although Xiaohua couldn't use his divine sense to observe it like how he detoxified the cultivator's poison, he had detoxified so many cultivators' poisons, and he also saw Elder Mu and the others' detoxification just now, so he had some idea in his heart. He stared at the appearance of the beauty-retaining grass, and his divine sense also wrapped around the beauty-retaining grass, carefully observing the changes of the beauty-retaining grass. As expected, the poisonous saliva was really complicated. Just as Elder Mu had predicted, one poison was within another, and one poison was a counter to the other. If he were to use antidotes, he would end up in the same situation as Elder Mu. The antidote would always rush towards the incendiary material of the other poison. However, Xiaohua's method of using poison to restrain poison was just right. No matter what poison it was restrained by the green python's venom. In addition, the secret technique was indeed somewhat mysterious, and the results could be seen in minute details. The cereal poison in the beauty-retaining grass could be said to have been detoxified in Xiaohua's hands. On the surface of the beauty-retaining grass, the pitch-black color was constantly changing, and every time it changed, the pitch-black color was reduced by a bit. When the 9 drops of the green python's venom were used up, the pitch-black color on the beauty-retaining grass was already cleared. Although it was still slightly gloomy, it was obvious that the beauty-retaining grass was alive. Great! Chun-Yi couldn't help but clap her hands and say, Xiaohua, you've done a great service. Alas, Xiaohua smiled bitterly, straightened up, and said with an apologetic smile, as long as Manor Master spares this junior's life, don't doubt this junior's intentions. Ha ha ha, Chun-Yi laughed. You're just a little foundation establishment. What intentions can you have? Why would this old one be afraid of your intentions? Yes, as long as Senior understands. Xiaohua somewhat understood. This junior will continue to work hard and detoxify the remaining 3 stalks. Good. If you succeed in one try, I will reward you handsomely. Chun-Yi nodded, and the faces of Chun Kuei and the others were also filled with joy. Needless to say, their lives were saved. Xiaohua wiped the sweat on his forehead with his hand. He wasn't tired, but he was afraid that there would be an accident. Xiaohua's heart tightened. Soon after, in less than 2 hours, the poison of the other 3 stalks of beauty-retaining grass was detoxified by Xiaohua. When all of the poisonous saliva was cleared, Xiaohua let out a long breath, bowed and said, Manor Master, this junior was fortunate enough to not disappoint you. Good. Chun-Yi waved her hand and said to Elder Mu and the others, Wait and see. How is this beauty-retaining grass? Good. Manor Master will know. Elder Mu's face was slightly red, and she said in a low voice, Previously, fellow Taoist Xiao was the first to detoxify the beauty-retaining grass. This old one and the others have already seen it. Although it hasn't returned to normal, it's no longer a big problem. Now, this old one and the others don't dare to do anything more. After a few days, let the beauty-retaining grass recover by itself, and use some methods to imbue it with spiritual energy. It should be able to completely recover. Good. Chun-Yi looked at Xiaohua and said with a smile, Your merits make up for your faults. It can be considered as complementing each other. Many thanks for Manor Master's kindness in not pursuing this matter. Xiaohua let out a long breath. Chun Kuei, clean up the dead beauty-retaining grass. I want to reactivate the array here. In the future, without my Dharma tablet, no one can come in at will. Chun-Yi waved her hand and ordered Chun Kuei. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.